Parliament's Legal Services Unit says the institution is prohibited from again deliberating on the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act. President Cyril Ramaphosa had signed the Bella Bill into law but suspended certain sections related to language and admission policies for 3 months to allow further consultations. The Basic Education Portfolio Committee in Parliament was set to discuss the 2 relevant clauses further, but it decided not to proceed following legal advice. Committee Chairperson Joy Maimela.
The legal team advised us that in terms of the law, the President has not referred the Act back to Parliament. So it will be something else for Parliament to engage on a matter that they've concluded on, because Parliament's work is done in terms of the Act. The Parliament had ascended the Act for the President's signature, for the President's consideration and signature. As a result, they believed that it would not be prudent for us to discuss the issue. As a result, we've removed the item from the agenda, and that was legal advice, and we heeded to that advice.
COSATU in Gauteng says accusations leveled against former Joburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda raise serious concerns regarding vetting processes. There are growing calls for Gwamanda to step down from his role as the city's community development MMC following his arrest last week. He appeared in the Protea Magistrates Court on Friday alongside his co-accused Mduduzi Zonde. They are charged with fraud amounting to 12,000 rand. They were both released on 2,000 rand bail and their case postponed to December. COSATU's Vusi Munyela says Gwamanda should step down from his position.
As COSATU in Gauteng, we are calling for him to excuse himself or resign as a public representative to allow law enforcement agencies to do their work. We are doing so so that the offices that he's occupying is respected, so that public service in this province is respected, that criminology in this province is not accepted. The Federation is awaiting what the mayor of Johannesburg will do in as far as the matter of Gwamanda is concerned.
A yellow level 4 warning for severe thunderstorms that could lead to flooding and damage to infrastructure has been issued for parts of KZN for this afternoon. The Weather Service says residents should brace themselves for heavy downpours and thunderstorms. Forecaster Thandiwe Kumete says the chances of rainfall will decrease from tomorrow.
They're expecting an 80% chance of showers and thunder showers across the KZN province. We are expecting those thunderstorms to become severe in some places. Hence, we've issued an alert, a yellow level 4 alert for severe thunderstorms that can be accompanied by excessive lightning, hail, as well as heavy downpours.
And health officials in Lebanon say an Israeli airstrike near the country's biggest hospital has killed at least 13 people. The Israeli military said it had targeted a nearby Hezbollah position and that the hospital itself had not been hit. More from the BBC's Lina Sinjab.
There was severe damage caused to the hospital, over 50 people wounded, most of them are children, and 13 dead. So this attack left Lebanese, and especially here in Beirut, in shock and in total fear. We're not sure what was the target and why this area was hit. It's also densely populated with civilians. It's a hospital. It's one of the biggest hospitals operating in Beirut. And this is certainly not a Hezbollah stronghold and not a Hezbollah area.
The top story at 3, the Auditor General's Office says over the last 5 financial years, government departments have incurred fruitless and wasteful expenditure of more than 1.4 billion rand. For SAFM News, Gemudupi Makhalemele.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Proteas women return from T20 World Cup, Snyman returns for Springboks November Internationals, and sports announced for Glasgow 2026 Commonwealth Games. More details at 3:30.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Right, you may well want to make a note of this. 74 million rand. That's the amount in total estimated Powerball and Powerball Plus jackpots. That could be your ticket to the big millions this Tuesday. Now, I don't gamble, but if you're up to it, well, there you are. Play Powerball for an estimated 15 million rands and Powerball Plus for an estimated 59 million rands today. You can buy your tickets now in store on the National Lottery. That's nationallottery.co.za. The mobile app, the cell phone banking, or you can dial into star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD Panda Push-Up Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Chuba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, a warm welcome, a good afternoon to you. What moves the National Pulse today? My name's Ashraf Garda. I've got my thoughts. You certainly have yours wherever you are. Is it the bad weather in many parts of the country, particularly I think the Eastern Cape, really atrocious weather. Some parts of, I know the KZN region as well, storming. Joburg had its very, very windy weather yesterday, and maybe less so today. I'm not too sure about other parts of the country. I think rain in the Western Cape as well. If you know more, you can tell me. That's just one aspect of it all. But there are other things in terms of different sorts of, the winds of change blowing with the political parties, as always, making their impact in terms of what they say on different pronouncements. And then significantly, there's the BRICS Summit 2024, and that's taking place in Russia, in Kazan. South Africa's president amongst the other leaders of the 9 BRICS nations there. We'll certainly talk about that, but I'll leave it to you. What for you moves the National Pulse today? What am I missing? What are you missing out? What you don't want us to miss out on? So how do you engage with me? You can call in to 086 000 2032 and then voice notes or text via WhatsApp to 0614 104 107. And as per usual, you can post on social media, on Facebook as well as on the X or Twitter platform. And I see Mahoro very much up front. Good afternoon together from Hamasia Chepuseni. So there you are. Wherever you are, and maybe tell us where you are. And as always, if you want to send us a picture with your dial locked into SAFM, that's great. I'll tell you where I am. I am on the 6th floor of the SABC buildings here at Radio Park at Auckland Park in Johannesburg. And I have my dial locked into SAFM. It is the National Pulse after all. Well, I'll tell you what, we talk about fingers on the pulse and what gets your pulses racing. What about this one here? AfriForum. Well, they say they do not need the EFF's permission to keep the city of Tshwane clean. Now, this is interesting. The newly elected MMC of Environmental Affairs in that region, that's Obakeng Ramadobu, who was a member of the EFF, just by the way, announced recently that he was going to propose that the agreement between the city of Tshwane and AfriForum be cancelled. But AfriForum says the MOU with the city is meant to make it easier to keep the city of Tshwane clean. Does this confuse you? Well, let's find out more about it with Kali Kriel, the AfriForum CEO. Kali, appreciate your time. You are now connected to the National Pulse.
Yes, thank you so much, Ashraf. It's great speaking to you.
Thank you. What do you make, firstly, of the newly elected MMC's position that, in fact, he would want to call for the MOU between the city of Tshwane and the organisation scrapped?
Well, I must say, I also find it confusing. Just to sum it up simply, if there is, for instance, a park in a community, and that community decides we want to make sure that we cut the grass here and we look after this park, what is the impact on that? It has no impact on anybody else because the city doesn't pay. If there is an impact, it's a positive impact because it means if the city does not have to cut the grass in a certain park, it means that their resources are freed and they can do it somewhere else. So even people not staying in a community benefits if that community decides we want to work and make sure that we are involved in our own community. So unfortunately, this member of the mayoral committee, it seems like he's so preoccupied with ideology that he's even willing to act to the detriment of his own support base.
Okay. Well, perhaps maybe let's take it a step back and explain to us what is the relationship within the MOU? What is the MOU about? What have you agreed with between the two parties?
Okay. Yes. Well, firstly, there's no funds being paid. So this propaganda that we receive money is simply not true. In fact, it costs us money because we have to buy lawnmowers. Our members, our volunteers have to give their time, and it's to the betterment of the community. Why we have the agreement? And like I've said previously, we don't need the EFF to give us permission. We're going to do it with or without them. But why this agreement was good? Because it allows coordination. Otherwise, the municipality, we simply duplicate what the municipality does. So this was to free up the municipality to say, we know you don't have enough resources to look after the city. The city is cash-strapped, and make it easy for communities to become involved.
But isn't the case here not so much about the money? I understand you're not receiving any monies, and that's great, right? Because we do talk about, great citizenry in all parts of the country. This is more about the city of Tshwane and its own people who work there not doing their job, and that's why people like organizations like AfriForum are roped in, meaning the first prize would be the city doing it themselves.
Yes, of course. No, it's good if the city does that, but with somebody like the EFF in government in the city, we don't see that changing in the near future. So, of course, that would be great. But the other thing is also, it's good for the community if they also take responsibility for themselves. And that's not only with regard to municipal infrastructure, and we see that in many communities. In Xhosa you have the term Vuk'uzenzele, and stand up and do it yourself. In Afrikaans we say ons self. So it gives the community some sense of pride. If you say we take responsibility for ourselves, and also on an individual level, if we teach our children and children from all communities, take responsibility for yourself, then it means they are the ones that has the responsibility to study at school. They are the ones to make sure that they act in a manner that's good for the future, that they build a good career. So the whole issue of community involvement, the benefits of that is much wider than simply just...
Okay. Now, I hear you. However, the MMC talks about this deal, this MOU, as nonsensical, right? Have you, engaged with the MMC directly and very importantly, maybe with the executive mayor?
No, we have not engaged because we only saw what he said on Twitter. The fact is we have an agreement that was not signed with the DA or the Freedom Front or with Action SA in the previous regime that we had. We signed it with the municipal manager, and that agreement stands. And until such time that there's official communication from the city, we regard it as if the agreement stands.
Okay. Now, in spite of it, from your side being a good job where you're offering a service to the city and you're doing it for mahala, which for all intents and purposes may be very good. If, for example, and this is a newly elected executive committee of the city of Tshwane, if they decide, not just the MMC, if the management committee comes together and says, but actually the mayor or the MMC's got a point, and they effectively move to have this entire MOU annulled, right? How would you respond to that? Would you challenge it, or would you say thank you as per your wishes and move on?
Well, it would be unfortunate because Action SA was actually part of the government that drove this process, that we get this agreement. They were the deputy mayor. I also had discussions with their leadership in the city as well as their national leadership before this agreement was signed, and they supported it. So we now again have Action SA mayor. If they change their minds, well, then we'll deal with that. And they then also have to say what clause they can it on. We have a 5-year agreement. Of course, if the agreement is not upheld by any party, then there is a mediation process. But we will want to hear from them on what grounds are they cancelling it. But of course, you can't stay married to somebody if they don't want to be married.
Absolutely. So therefore, my point, if, for example, the move is from the city of Tshwane to actually cancel it, even though you may think that's rather foolish, do I take it that you actually wouldn't fight them at the end of the day? You'd walk away?
Yeah, well, what we'll just do, we'll just continue on our road, getting our communities to be involved in looking after their communities, becoming involved in neighborhood watches, and then cooperating with the police, cooperating with any other community organization that wants to cooperate. And the cancelling of this will more be to the detriment of the city, because then they'll now have to spend resources where they would have not had to do so.
Just the last thing, do you provide the service to any other city, town, dorp in the country?
Well, we have 165 branches across the country. In most of them, we do the work also without an agreement with the municipality. So that is our core AfriForum focus. 80% of our work are on grassroots level. The 20% is the kind of things like we do court cases and so holding the EFF accountable. But so we do it across the country. In some municipalities, there are agreements. For instance, some municipalities sponsors the TAR. We give the volunteers. Some municipalities borrow us their cherry pickers, and we change the bulbs in the street lights. So there's a lot of this kind of work being done all over the country, which I think is good.
All right, let's leave it at that. It's a complex issue. Well, is it complex? I don't know. Kali Kriel is the CEO of AfriForum. So here's the story. The city of Tshwane can't do the work themselves in terms of cleaning up on certain areas. So they have a deal, an MOU with AfriForum. And part of that MOU, according to Kali Kriel, is they don't get paid a cent. They've been doing it, and they will continue doing it with or without a memorandum in terms of being good citizens. You now have a newly appointed MMC for Environmental Affairs and Agriculture. That's Obakeng Ramaphodu, rather. And the MMC has made the point that this entire deal is nonsensical. It's an issue that's been raised before. Do you think the MMC's got a point, meaning that it's not so much whether they're getting paid or not. It's the principle of, like, should the city be doing it themselves? On the other hand, one may say, if there's a call out, as always is from national level, to say, be the good citizen to be living in the country that you want to be living in, that sets us the highest standards, then if organizations are doing so, isn't that a good thing? For example, what difference then would it be, for example, between AfriForum and, for example, the work that the Gift of the Giver is currently doing in the Eastern Cape? I mean, do you see that, right? With or without an MOU? And Kali Kriel's made the point, well, even without an MOU, we will certainly continue doing the work. So this is the National Pulse. This should certainly get your pulses racing. Tell me what you think, and what would you do if you were the mayor and head of that mayoral committee on this issue? Would you annul that MOU? Would you say, come on, man, just be logical about this and let common sense prevail? There's nothing nonsensical about this. What would you do? 0614104107 in terms of voice notes or text messages. But to call in live, it's 086 000 2032. Welcome to the show.
The reality is that 90% of South Africans don't save enough for retirement. This National Seniors Month, why not be part of the 10% who do? Choose an interest rate of up to 11.7% after 60 months with a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account. Anyone 55 and over can open one on the Money app in less than 2 minutes. Go to nedbank.co.za for more info. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices are making our kids sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, leading to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they get older. We need to protect our kids from all sugary drinks. Demand a stronger health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the reed dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Bayede!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Tell you what, so much happens in the world, and there's certainly a lot happening with huge attention in Russia, in Kazan, and I think that's where Sophie is, Sophie Makwea, that is, because that's what she should be doing, considering it's an important event as part of the Global Watch. We're talking about the 16th BRICS Summit. The last one a year ago was in South Africa. So, Sophie, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ashraf. Just a note, I'm not in Kazan. I'm here in Johannesburg, but getting the feed and monitoring what's happening in Kazan.
Oh my goodness, I really wish you were there in Kazan anyway, right. But having said that, you're certainly following the story, and I understand you would follow it from close quarters anyway, even when from afar, right? Firstly, how significant is this BRICS Summit?
I think it's quite important in many fronts. I mean, when you look at the current global challenges, be it economic issues or the geopolitics, it's quite important, because when you look at number of countries who will be there represented by heads of state and government, but including those who have been delegated to represent their respective countries, it's quite huge. And I think bigger than South Africa in terms of numbers, and quite important at the time where you still have the war raging in Ukraine, the Middle East, and Putin with all the challenges that he's facing, and the warrant of arrest attempts to isolate him. So it is that moment where he can demonstrate to his detractors in the West that he's got friends.
So let's stay with that. Firstly, I mean, of course, you're talking about detractors or isolation in the context of the Russian war on Ukraine, right? This confirms what? That he has support, or not so much support, but there are many political leaders, including South Africa, who find it expedient to speak to the leader of Russia, because that's the way politics works.
Yeah, it speaks to, dealing with issues of inconsistency, and also issues of unipolar. Do away with it. Demonstrate you subscribe to multipolar. People must be allowed to express themselves and have friends, and no one should dictate friends to you. But secondly, it's not only the West that can provide solutions to the current problems or challenges facing the world. And lastly, there are other critical countries that you can still do business with. And it doesn't mean it's only the developed North that can provide trade and investment and environment and resources. So you can look south, and south-south, you can get a very healthy relationship in terms of trade, political, and security without those countries dictating to you who your friends must be. I think for me that's the message. Multilateralism must be supported. Unipolar, it's a no-no.
Okay. Now, this year, we've had 5 BRICS countries. This year, it's 9 for the very first time. I think it's Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the UAE that has joined the original 5, including South Africa. What for you are the biggest issues that are going to be tabled at the summit that you'd like to look out for?
For me, it's 2 issues. The current security challenges and peace in the Middle East and in Ukraine. The second one, a move to push that all member states of BRICS, when they do business amongst themselves, those payments must not be in dollars. It must be on national currencies, so that you are able to address the issue of America with SWIFT having imposed sanctions on Russia and having to approve payments becomes problematic. And therefore, come with your own payment system. That will also affect the standing of the dollar, because for years people have been doing business using dollars, countries. So if you create space for people not to really rely on the dollar to do business amongst themselves, you are actually weakening the dollar, while you are engaged in a longer discussion of having a BRICS currency. That's not going to be easy, and it's not going to come now. But if the summit can approve a recommendation by finance ministers and central bank heads of BRICS through the development bank, that is BRICS Bank, to adopt this resolution that we do business using our own national currencies, it will be a major shift.
Okay, well, the question is it being tabled? Well, we'll see whether it will be and what emerges from that, right? But maybe in the short time we have remaining, Sophie, what then about South Africa? Of course, President Ramaphosa is there, I see that. What do you think his plan would be going into the summit, now being the head of state of a country for the very first time where the majority party is not a majority party?
I think he is going to take this opportunity to brief other leaders on the margins of the summit. He did the same just now. He met President Putin, much as the focus was on BRICS, because we, as South Africa, is the outgoing chair, and the current is Russia, handing over or just wrapping up issues. But the issue is, how do you assure Russia that DA, being part of the national government of national unity, it's not going to dilute the foreign policy of South Africa? As we know that when coming to Russia, when you look at DA and Freedom Front Plus, you have a huge problem.
And that's where we'll leave it, Sophie. I'm sure we're going to talk more about some of the big issues that will emerge from the BRICS Summit 2024 in the next few days. So, Sophie Mokoena, eye on the BRICS Summit from South Africa or wherever you may be in the world. Appreciate your time there, right? What do you make of the BRICS Summit 2024? I mean, your thoughts in terms of the issues that myself and Sophie Mokoena spoke about, or are there other issues you'd be looking out for? And by the way, while you're at it, just keeping in mind that we had the summit last year, we were the chair. When the summit was hosted in South Africa, what impact did it make and have on your own personal psyche, and what do you think it had on your national psyche? I'd love it if you actually could share some of your own experiences of BRICS 2024 and what that meant to you at that 2023 rather, and what that meant to you then a year ago and now. 3:30, here's the news headlines with Majubi.
Thank you very much, Uncle A, and good afternoon. In your headlines, the Auditor General's Office says over the last 5 financial years, the government departments have incurred fruitless and wasteful expenditure of more than 1.4 billion rand. Basic Education Minister Siviwe Kwagube says despite a few problems due to inclement weather in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape, the overall assessment shows a positive start to this year's final matric exams. And President Cyril Ramaphosa has met his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Kazan, where he assured him that South Africa still values its relationship with Russia. Those are your headlines. A full news update coming up at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and the N1 northbound as roadworks reported, the right lane closed between Porter Avenue and the R21 highway. In KZN, the N3 northbound has a tanker crash reported at Mooirivier, and the M7 westbound in Pinetown queuing towards the N3 highway. In Mpumalanga, the N4 Schoemanskloof is where a truck crash reported between Patatanek and Old Joe Monument. Traffic moving via contraflow on the westbound carriageway, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rose Drive, and the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Khapele.
All right, to me, our own Minister of Sports, let's talk cricket.
Yeah, we're talking cricket. The Proteas women's cricket team is back in the country after finishing as the runners-up at the T20 World Cup. The team received a welcome from a small crowd that gathered at the OR Tambo International Airport when they landed this morning. Now, the supporters who were at the airport said that it was very important to show the Proteas the same support that other successful teams have shown before. Meanwhile, Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, says that it's time for equal pay.
No, you see, we must leave that thing, say financial challenges when it comes to men. But by men's sport, we pay. We don't talk about financial challenges. When it comes to women, they must be paid. We talk about financial challenges. We should work our things in this fashion that men and women get paid the same. And I'm going to fight for that. I'm not going to listen to stories about we are a bit financially castrated. There's never a right time to do the right thing. And the right thing to do is now. And the right thing to do, and I'm going to pressurize sporting codes. And I've been meeting with cricket, and I mean my Department of Sport, Arts and Culture has been giving money for this particular team to be developed, and you see what happened. So my next fight is not professionalization, because the previous minister fought for them to be professionalized. It happened. Look at the results. The next fight is equal pay in sport for women and men. I mean, they both entertain, they both play, they both risk the same injuries. They both. Why is it that there's a discrepancy? I'm not going to listen to nonsense of, no, we can't do this. When are we going to do this if we can't do it now?
Okay. You want to say something, I have a sense to.
I think, what the minister is speaking to is just supporting national teams equally. Obviously, now he's talking about finances. And just seeing the crowd that was at the OR Tambo, for me, I think it was a disappointment because despite the fact that, yes, we did lose at the final yet again, finishing as runners-up is good enough, is it not? And the one question that perhaps I'd like to ask to sports fans, what gets you to leave your house or to decide when a national team or after a national team has performed well, and I'm assuming it's a relative thing to say well, but finishing as runners-up at a World Cup?
Here's my question about that. I mean, clearly they did well, and I was really heartbroken that they lost the final.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. What time did they arrive? If you ask me what time did they arrive, I can't give you an answer.
Yeah.
Because
they arrived this morning.
What time?
I think it was around 10, if I'm not wrong.
Where was there any publicity around that? I'll tell you what the point I'm asking is this. What role does Cricket South Africa play in saying, go out and support, in this case, our girls who are finalists in the second successive World Cup? That means they can't take it for granted people will just go there. You do have to, you understand that we have eyeballs in different places. Sure. You have to fight for audience. And I have a sense they didn't, because even on the day of the final, there was no, Bok Friday. There was no hey, wear your jerseys. I certainly wore it. There was nothing like that. So who's going to mobilize it? It's not the media. It has to be Cricket South Africa that mobilizes the media to mobilize the masses. They have to take responsibility of their property, which is the women's team.
That is so true, especially if the media press conference is going to happen there at the airport. But still sticking with the cricket on the men's side of things, day 2 of that first test against Bangladesh. Bangladesh reached 101 for 3 in their second innings and trailed South Africa by 101 runs at stumps. Earlier, Kyle Verreynne notched up his second test ton as the Proteas were dismissed for 308 in the first innings. Then moving on to Rugby World Cup winning lock Archie Snyman has been named in Springbok squad for the 3 tests next month. Snyman missed the Rugby Championship with a foot injury, and the 29-year-old is joined in that setup by utility back Damian Willemse, centre Andre Esterhazen, and fellow second row Franco Mostert, who were also sidelined for the mid-year campaign. Fly half Sasha Feinberg, Ngome Zulu, lock Salman Murat, and Loet de Jager, as well as prop Steven Kishoff, are missing, however, with the fitness issues. Then in football, the Betway Premiership season resumes tonight with a blockbuster clash between Orlando Pirates and SuperSport United at Orlando Stadium. The Buccaneers likely to welcome back Makahlene, Makaula and Miguel Tim from injury, while SuperSport will have to do without Khape Moralo, who's out on suspension. Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Manqoba Mngqithi says that he's hoping to have talisman midfielder Themba Zwane back from injury in 4 months rather than the worst case scenario of 6. Zwane has been ruled out for a minimum of 4 months with the ruptured Achilles that he suffered while in action for Bafana Bafana in last week. Then finally, in Commonwealth Games news, track cycling and boxing among the events that will be included in the Glasgow 2026 Commonwealth Games. That has been revealed by the Commonwealth Board. Now, a stripped back program of 10 sports announced today also includes athletics and swimming as mandatory, but badminton and hockey have been dropped. Now, the games last held in Glasgow in 2014 at a cost of over £540 million will take place across 4 venues between the 23rd of July and the 2nd of August in 2026, and Glasgow stepped in to host after the Australian state of Victoria pulled out because of a rising cost. On that note, is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Okay, perfect. 1 hour from now, we talk more sport.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul?
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply. Get ready for the biggest night in South African music. Tune in to SABC 1 on the 2nd of November at 8 p.m. for the 30th South African Music Awards, celebrating our finest local talent. Catch the yellow carpet action from 6 p.m. and join us as we honor the legends and voices that shape our sound. For more info, visit samusicawards.co.za. Hashtag Less Noise, More Music. Hashtag Summer 30 in partnership with the SABC.
Muvhango returns for an explosive new season on SABC2. A renaissance of new beginnings, intrigue, and drama with old enemies and new characters. Catch the rebirth season of Muvhango every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. on SABC2 or stream it on SABC Plus. Muvhango, ukovela phanda. SABC2.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So there's been talk all morning about the former mayor of the city of Joburg, Kabelo Gwamanda, being asked to go on special leave, and whether this has been confirmed. He now confirms it himself. In fact, I had a tweet saying, I deemed it important to notify the public that following some of the skewed media reporting And in the interest of the public and stakeholders, I will be taking leave to allow me to focus on the personal legal matters that requires my full attention. And there's also a letter from Tapelo Mafa, the chief specialist, and the city of Joburg, confirming exactly that as well, that the former mayor has now taken special leave, who's currently the MMC for Community Development, and that's Councillor Kabelo Gwamanda. It's certainly an issue we will pick up on, and I'm sure you have strong views about that. Now, South Africa, some parts of the country anyway, some really terrible weather. Winds in Joburg, pouring rain in KZN, storms in the Free State as well, and absolutely terrible weather in the Eastern Cape. As a result of that inclement weather, it's really impacted schooling, in particular general schooling, but also around the matric exams as well. Now, the department spokesperson, Malibonge Mtima, has called on all learners, teachers and parents in the province to be vigilant, okay? This says that around 400 students were reportedly unable to write their matric final exams today due to devastating floods in the province. A big issue. So we have with us Malibongwe Mtima, the spokesperson for the Department of Education in the Eastern Cape region. In fact, we'll connect with the spokesperson in a moment. What we will do is there's a clip of a person calling in on Cathy Show this morning, and that's Zwela Bantu James, who's a teacher and a departmental head at the Warmer Primary School, who was called on to describe the situation and how the weather affected schooling in that region, and of course the whole Gqeberha region. Well, this is what he had to say.
I'm located in Warmer Primary School near the airport. It's a low-lying area which is extremely flooded now because we had the heavy rains throughout the night. The whole yard of school is filled with water, pools of water around. Mm. Now we were forced then to ask the parents to keep the kids safe at home, but we're still at work as teachers. So the situation is standing as that. Luckily for the high school, their school is a little bit high, in a higher slope compared to us. They may be able to have their exams going for grade 12. Mm. However, I think it will be an alternative to change the writing time. But their writing venue is still okay in the upper area.
When you look around, Zwabantu, in terms of the damage that has been done, I know that there have also been concerns around traveling, especially for air travelers, where they have to watch the weather conditions quite closely. But how extensive would you say the damage has been getting from your home to school this morning? What have you seen?
Yeah, it could be a number of millions because the roads are also damaged. Similarly, the way to get to the airport is the roads are filled with water. As of now, you can't quantify the amount to rebuild or to fix, but there's an extensive damage.
So effectively, anybody that's trying to get to that airport this morning needs to just build in that extra time, if I'm hearing you clearly.
Build in the extra time and extreme caution.
Okay, that gives you a sense of the level of frustration that has affected, teachers, learners at various schools in the Eastern Cape. So with me is Malibongwe Mtima, the spokesperson for the Eastern Cape Department of Education. Appreciate your time, Malibongwe. Welcome to the National Pulse.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I speak to you at a time when, fingers on your pulse would be racing because of what's happening in that region, isn't it?
Yes. We're up and down trying to make sure that things are sorted and learners are safe. And with the help of course, the police, we have been able to also deliver question papers where they were needed with the annuals, which was helpful, and also we're also working with the local authorities to establish alternative venues for those learners who are severely affected. Mm. Of course, we're doing that not only with the municipality but also with the Department of Transport.
Okay, I understand that 400 matric students in particular could not write their exam. I mean, that has huge implications, right?
319 to be precise. we were unable to write from 5 schools. But what we have done as the department, during the day, we're able to sit with the national office, establish an alternative date for them to write, which is the 28th of November this year. We are hoping that this is a conducive one, after, of course, having looked at various issues that could have been impediments to them to write at that time.
Okay, so have they written already, or you're going to still arrange that for them to be writing?
We have declared that those 319 learners who are unable to write to take you to these weathers are going to write on the 28th of November.
Okay, so there's quite a gap between when they rewrite or write. They get that chance, right? I mean, what does this do on the morale of the learners? Because I'm sure it's very unsettling.
Look, majority of them are threatened by this, despite the fact that they were ready. Some of them, you can feel that when they are saying that they are ready, you can tell that there are also reservations of this weather and whatnot they impact, because those that were spoken to have shown some eagerness and motivation to go ahead, but everybody is scared of the rain. That's why we have said to everyone, let's wait and hear from the weather guys what will be happening. Remember, it did not only affect us in terms of only teaching and learning, also the delivery of stationery, which was in full swing in the Nelson Mandela Metro, had to be suspended for 2 days. For about 100 schools that we should have delivered to them, we have not delivered because of the rains. We don't want the books and the other stationery to be damaged by the rain. Hence we've said, let's wait, suspend everything until the weather clears.
Okay, maybe the last thing is the issues of bad weather, rains. I mean, I see we had that caller who spoke about warmer in Gqeberha, and that's a common area of flooding in the warmer area, right? Is what are the factors to put into place to ensure that preventative measures kick in to mitigate against the type of damage that we tend to experience every few months?
Look, some of the areas where people are residing, we cannot do anything to change. But what we do is, in an event where our venue, let's assume that the center has been flooded, we have engaged the local municipalities and the council of churches to avail their venues, whether it's halls or church, as an alternative venue. Number one. Number two, we are in constant contact with the police, who are also part of the provincial disaster that is already stationed there, trying to assist, provide clothes and food to those that have been severely affected. So working with everyone to ensure that at least everything is intact. And on top of that, the MEC and the head of department are on site to ensure that if there is any support, it is provided. Hence, they are monitoring the situation.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add to our conversation that you think we need to know about regarding the impact of the flooding?
Look, for now, we are relying on the weather guys or bureau to inform us what will be next. But some areas have shown signs of clearing weather, because in certain areas we have seen some sky, but we hope that it will not interfere with our plans. But if it has done so, there will be discussions on how to handle it. Hence, the monitoring team led by the MEC is on site to determine on time and on site what would be the alternative, or what would be the next step to take if the weather is becoming more severe than yesterday.
Okay, that's where we shall leave it. Appreciate your time, Malibongwe Mtima, spokesperson for the Eastern Cape Department of Education.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
Right, what we'll do is I'm going to just check. In fact, we're going to comment on an issue regarding the DA coming up just now. But before that, let's get to some of the voice notes we've got.
Hi, Ashraf. I think it comes down to the fact that if somebody's doing it for free, then somebody else can't get a tender to do it. For me, it's nonsensical. You know, if somebody wants to improve the lives of other people at no cost, why don't you just leave them? I mean, South Africa has such a lot of we've got such a lot of challenges. You know, if somebody steps up and say, listen, I'll do this, you don't have to pay me for it, why do we have to fight it? For me, it just doesn't make sense, and it comes back to the fact that I said, you know, maybe it's taking somebody else's job away. I don't know.
Okay, I mean, I hear what you're saying. It's, you know what, on face value, that's exactly what it sounds like to say, well, it's trying to block a tender here. But I think it's a bit more complex than that. You see, if somebody does something for hire department for free, what they do have is they have influence. In this case, AfriForum has influence. They are able to influence the processes in the department to say, look how good we are, which then allows them to influence other parts of South African society elsewhere to say, a job well done. So even though they do well, it's rather tricky in terms of how it is managed, okay? And I'm not completely sold one way or the other. Imbawana in Mahikeng, what's your thoughts?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, go ahead.
Yes, I want to speak about the Middle East war and the BRICS nations.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a problem in the Middle East. The problem of the Middle East, the countries there, they are not honest among one another. They are biased one another. That's why the West and Israelis are having a chance to destroy them. Because there is only Iran and Syria which are serious about the Middle East. The rest of Egypt and the UAE, they are all biased people. They're pretending to solve the problem on the ground. So this time, Africa and Russia, China, they have to stand and demonstrate to the world that they can defend democracy of people.
They must defend democracy. Okay, I hear you. We're going to move on just because of time constraints, but you've made your point. They must defend democracy. Some may say, what sort of democracy? And maybe part of the conversation, you will bring in the issue of Russia and the Ukraine, won't you? I'm sure about that. Thanks for that. Let's move on to another big issue. We spoke about this yesterday, the Democratic Alliance. Remember, they went to the Electoral Court regarding President Ramaphosa's pre-election speech, suggesting that it was just not in good taste. Well, you know, the Electoral Court ruled against the DA, saying, hey, they were fine with that. Well, now the DA has confirmed they are going to appeal. Something that we, as a production team, myself, Keys and Temba, said, well, clearly that's going to happen, isn't it? So they are appealing. Let's find out what the story is in terms of the DA next. Here's Karabo Kauhau, the DA's national spokesperson. Karabo, appreciate your time. You're connected to the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. Hello to yourself and hello to your listeners.
Hello. How much thought went into appealing?
Pardon, say that again?
How much thought went into the DA deciding that you will appeal the Electoral Court ruling?
Every spirit there is, because we took all our energy to the Electoral Court and we're not done exhausting it, right? Because we are fundamentally of the opinion that any state president, irrespective of which political party they represent, even if it was John Steenhuisen himself sitting at the helm of the presidency, should not ever be in an opportunity where they're able to manipulate the resources, state resources, using institutional levers such as the South African Broadcasting Agency to address the public on political interests that are not broadly that of South Africa's interests, but are strictly focused on their own political parties' outcomes. And this is exactly what happened with President Ramaphosa's address there. What we saw that night when the president addressed the nation was a president that was panicking because his ANC votes were not aligning to that which he wanted to do. And instead of holding an ANC rally, he decided to abuse his office to go on air and address the Republic, giving them a review of what that they have done in government or not.
But how do you know that he actually did it? How do you know that he abused his position? I mean, what did he say on air that speaks to the point to say, look at the president, he's actually punting the ANC here?
Ashraf, I think many South Africans, including yourself, watched that speech. And if you yourself watched that speech, you would recall very well that that speech was an ANC manifesto review of work that's been done in the past 30 years of democracy, celebrating and glorifying that which he believes the African National Congress to be, instead of, and also secondly, taking an opportunity to rally the troops, which are South Africans, to go to the polls to vote, making a clarion call with very...
Oh, I think we may have just lost our spokesperson from the DA. Hopefully we can reconnect with Karabo in just a second. Let me just see if Keith can sort that out. In the meantime, here's one of the others, conversations on BRICS.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Makwarela Chinyazo from Tendo. You know, Ashraf, what I like about this BRICS country is that they respect each other. They treat each other equally, you know, and they integrate with each other. That is what I like about the BRICS nations. You know, now that we are experiencing the transitioning of unipolar world to a multipolar world, whereby now we have the Global South community coming together, you know, in the name of BRICS. That is very, very interesting. It shows that many countries are tired of being bullied by Western countries, you know, being told what to do by the Western country. Whenever they don't agree with them, they are being threatened by sanctions, by Western domination. That is very, very wrong.
Well, I mean, you've said a lot of things. I got that. We'll probably talk about that later on. We do have now Karabo Gaugao, the DA's national spokesperson, back online. So, okay, when we lost contact at that point, we were talking about the president effectively trying to be in contact with the nation, right? Connected to the pulse of the nation, so to speak, right? What did he say that so convinced you that he effectively acted in bad taste?
Ashraf, there's a difference between having a conversation with the Republic about where government programs are and in which direction they are going as a review that is a standard process that the President would have had on the work of government. There's a difference between that and a government and a president deciding at the eve of the election suddenly going to go have a review discussion with the Republic about what it is that the ANC was supposedly supposed to do for the elections, and then subsequently also calling on the nation to, on the basis of those submissions, go vote. So he did that in a very strategic and sophisticated way, because he obviously couldn't have outright went out and say, hey, listen, yes, I know I am the president, but also I'm voted in by ANC supporters, and in order for me to remain president, I need you to go vote for the ANC again. And so if you watch that clip very well, you would know that he did so in a sophisticated way of a dance for words and language. And so that's our contention here. You know, it would have also been different, Ashraf, if there was an existing culture within the presidency of giving regular feedback on work that is being done across board and across board. Then we would have actually said, okay, there's nothing new about what the president is doing. He is used to actually giving feedback to the country. But it is specifically new because you would know yourself, apart from during COVID-19, where he would address the nation to discuss the crisis that is, the president has never outside of Parliament and outside of press conferences and outside of the ANC's rallies, given any feedback to the Republican, made clarion calls on how voters should imagine their
participation. Point taken, and I think many people argue about the lack of Q&A with the president, so point taken. Having said that, the electoral court doesn't agree with you.
You see, well, the electoral court doesn't have to agree with us, and that's why we are appealing, right? So, and the beauty about democracy is that we have multiple opportunities for us to exhaust, trying to make sure that we maintain a democracy that is very safe for South Africans, making sure that we uphold the rule of law, making sure that we cushion South Africans from ever having to deal with a state president in future who would want to abuse his power. And so we are very much not worried about what the electoral court said. That's why we're appealing. We are fully confident in where we are as far as the logic of our case against the president in this manner. We do believe that South Africans do deserve an apology from the president. We do want him to acknowledge that he genuinely, honestly, as a man, flawed there. He shouldn't have addressed the nation in a way that he did.
Okay,
what the Republic needs from him is an apology.
And lastly, all of that, in terms of your taking this matter to appeal, will not or does not factor in, or does it factor in the fact that, in fact, the DA and the ANC are partners? They were not partners on May 29th or at the time that he made the speech.
Our partnership doesn't mean that we are now in the same bed of wrong. So we were very clear at the Democratic Alliance that the only partnership we have has to do with making sure that there is service delivery, making sure that we have a government that is effectively and efficiently functioning to champion the best interests of South Africans, growing the economy, creating jobs, making sure that we alleviate poverty, making sure that South Africans have a better country and government that they can trust. That does not mean that when there is a compromise or a breach of the rule of law and principles, which is clearly the case here in the President's address, that we're going to keep mute and now suddenly neglect our responsibility to also be the vanguards of the very same republic that we want to represent.
Okay.
That means
Let's leave it at that. Let's see how far you will go on that issue, Karabo Chachau, the DA's national spokesperson, taking that issue of the electoral court ruling around President Ramaphosa. They're saying they're okay with that speech he made, but now they're taking that issue, the DA that is taking the issue to appeal to a higher court. Let's see what happens next. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ntate Garda. The top stories: millions wasted by the SABC and the Post Office, and Ramaphosa meets Putin in Russia. A very good afternoon. The Post Office and the SABC topped the list of state-owned enterprises that have incurred the highest fruitless and wasteful expenditure. According to the Auditor General's office, the Post Office has incurred 650 million rand in fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and the public broadcaster more than 165 million. The AG briefed Parliament's Standing Committee on Appropriations on the offending departments over the past 5 financial years. Here's the office's Bongi Ngoma.
Translate to about 2 billion for 27 SOEs, and the top 10 is listed there in the slide. Of course, leading the pack being the South African Post Office, followed by SABC, and the list goes on.
The AG's office further says that procurement irregularities have been identified as some of the major issues when it comes to the SABC. Seybrand Strewig is also with the AG's office.
What we see in that environment, we often get procurement irregularities, where they engage to get services, but through the process, what Ms. Ngoma has explained in terms of evaluating in terms of the procurement processes, they have not elected the preferential supplier, which then creates a situation where it doesn't conform to legislation, irregular expenditure, but no consequences are taken after that.
Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwachube says despite a few problems due to inclement weather in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape, the overall assessment shows a positive start to this year's final matric exams. She was briefing Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on the state of readiness for the 2024 exams. Gwachube explains her department exam preparation process.
Number one, we check the readiness of the system to roll out the examinations. So that in that goes from the printing of the papers to the storing of the papers to the transportation of the papers, whether the papers will move from the area of storage to the exam centers on time, and also to make sure that scripts are then taken and those are also secured.
A yellow level 4 warning for severe thunderstorms that could lead to flooding and damage to infrastructure has been issued for parts of KZN for this afternoon. The Weather Service says residents should brace themselves for heavy downpours and thunderstorms. Forecaster Tandiwe Kumete says the chances of rainfall will decrease from tomorrow.
We're expecting an 80% chance of showers and thunder showers across the KZN province. We are expecting those thunderstorms to become severe in some places. Hence, we've issued an alert, a yellow level 4 alert for severe thunderstorms that can be accompanied by excessive lightning, hail, as well as heavy downpours.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has met his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Kazan, where he assured him that South Africa still values its relationship with Russia. Ramaphosa is in Russia to attend the 16th BRICS summit. They discuss global issues and the bilateral trade relations between Pretoria and Moscow. Ramaphosa also told Putin that he will detail how South Africa formed a new government after the May general elections.
We're rather pleased that with your support in every respect, we've been able to reach this point in the history of our country. So we continue to see Russia as a valued ally, as a valued friend who supported us right from the beginning, from the days of our struggle against apartheid right through to now. We are going to have important discussions here in Kazan within the BRICS family.
And finally, back home, a University of Pretoria professor is part of a global team whose latest research estimates that 10,000 lives could be saved by 2095 in South Africa alone. This is if the government implements a strategy of banning cigarette sales to people born between 2006 and 2010. The ban will even last when this age group enters adulthood. The strategy, dubbed the Endgame Strategy, plans to eliminate tobacco-induced lung cancer in people born in 2006 and 2010 across 185 countries. Here's the university's Professor Lekan Ayu Yusuf.
Endgame strategy is looking at all the social, cultural, and political dynamics that promote tobacco use. But in addition to that, is to eliminate a generation from being able to access tobacco use. Because many countries have been looking at potential health gains, but none has looked at potential deaths that could be saved.
The top story at 4 o'clock, the Post Office and the SABC top the list of state-owned enterprises that have incurred the highest fruitless and wasteful expenditure. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
In sports this hour, Banyana looking to start COSAFA Women's Championship on high, and Swiatek announces return to action at Billie Jean King Cup Finals. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand, slow moving towards Samrand Road. Ilias Motsoledi Road is where a police incident is reported near Dobsonville Mall, so expect delays and diversions. In Sandton, Grayston Drive eastbound, queuing at Linden Street, and Sandton Drive westbound, slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive. In KZN, heavy rain reported in the Mpangeni and Richards Bay areas. Reduce speeds and drive with care. The N3 northbound has a tanker crash reported at Moirafield, and the N2 northbound has a stationary truck reported at Spaghetti Junction. In the Eastern Cape, widespread flooding across the Gqeberha area. Proceed with extreme caution. In Mpumalanga, the N4 Skumanskloof is where truck crash reported between Patatanek and Old Joe Monument. Traffic moving via contraflow on the westbound carriageway, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound, slow moving at Voortrekker Road. Batencross Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway, and Baden-Powell Drive has sand at Momabizi Bend, so you're asked to proceed with caution. With your traffic updates, I'm Irma G.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
It certainly is the National Pulse. What for you are the big issues that drives the National Pulse? What moves your pulse rate today? You have your fingers on the pulse. We certainly do it as well. And let's talk about it, right? There's lots of other comments that we have on some of the other big issues, but let's talk about this in the meantime. Well, before I do that, let me just invite you to call in 086 000 2032. You can WhatsApp, text, voice note 0614 104 107. My name's Ashraf Garda. Welcome to the show. Let's talk about human rights now. The more than 1,000 activists were expected to march to the union buildings today to demand justice and an end to the violence, threats and intimidation aimed at activists and whistleblowers. The Human Rights Defenders Campaign at Groundwork, that's Robbie Mokhalaka, joins me on the line to tell us more about the march. So, Robbie, appreciate your time. You're connected to the National Pulse.
Thank you, and thank you for all the listeners. Thank you for inviting me to the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Why the need to march to the union buildings to talk about activists and whistleblowers?
Yeah, look, this is a national march. Yeah? This was a national march. We started last year, and this is the second time now. And we most importantly for people to know, this is the day that we commemorate one of the activists that was killed. That is Mansfikile Ntshangase, who was killed in her own home by 3 men against the woman. 3 men against the woman for pushing back against the man that was planning to expand in the area, in the Somkhele area. Now, it was important for us to strategically choose the Union Building simply because that's where the president is residing. That's where many government the department that we're targeting, that is the Department of Justice and the Department of Police, are situated. We wanted to come closer to them. Last year, we only went to the SAPS headquarters in Pretoria, and we realized that perhaps maybe others couldn't make it, but let's go to the place where they are all converged so that they can be able to come and receive us and take the memorandum. So hence, that's the reason why we opted for the Union Building.
Okay, do I take it the memorandum has been delivered then?
Absolutely. The memorandum has been delivered. Fortunately, we had someone representing the presidency, the office of the presidency, on behalf of the president, of course, to receive the memorandum. And we also had the IPID on board to come and co-sign, and as they are a relevant institution in terms of monitoring how the police behave in terms of these criminal cases that have been reported of the human rights defenders.
What is the essence of the memorandum? I mean, what have you said? What are you asking for?
In the memorandum, the asking way that there were 3 demands or asking that we made. One is to a development of a legal framework that seeks to recognize the contribution that has been made by human rights defenders, including whistleblowers. So that is the recognition. And also that particular legal framework needs to protect, needs to indicate in some way a protection that needs to be afforded to the human rights defenders in our country, including whistleblowers. The second point is for the government. We're asking the government to start a campaign that speaks about or discourages the killing and intimidation on human rights defenders and whistleblowers. Last but not least, we are asking for the government to deal with those cases where human rights defenders have been killed and those cases where human rights defenders have been intimidated, because nothing much is done. So we're asking for the government to put together an investigative team or task team to work on those cases, particularly those cases, and make sure that arrest is secured.
Interesting. Yesterday I spoke to Athol Williams, right? You know, he's based in England now. And then when he's the recipient now of the Social Justice Champion of the Year Award for, amongst other things, his work in social justice at grassroots level, but also his role as this corruption buster. But as you know, him being a whistleblower, and he was very emphatic about it, he's paid for it in terms of it's not safe for him to be in this country. I mean, that's an ongoing issue, isn't it? That whistleblowers go out, do their job, and then it seems like that the state is unable to provide the adequate support for them.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't say that they are unable to, because we need to be clear about that one. We need to ask ourselves, are they capable? Are they capable to do that? And the answer is yes, they are capable to do that. What they need to do is to work together with those whistleblowers and be intentional in terms of listening, in terms of working together with them, with the human rights defenders, and understand the issues and make sure that those people, those human rights defenders, including whistleblowers, are well protected, taken care of. They are sort of classified as essential service providers in our society, and they are protected. And anyone that touches them is dealt with in terms of law. So there is not an issue of unable, but it's an issue of are they willing to.
But I mean, that's almost even worse. As you see, if they're unable, you can say, well, you know what, they just don't have the skills capacity. If they have the ability to, but they're unwilling to, that's even worse, isn't it? What does that say about where we are as a country then?
I beg your pardon, I missed the...
I was saying if they are capable but unwilling to, that means they're able to but they're not willing to. That is even a bigger problem, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's a political will that we're actually pushing for. We just want, we're just asking for a government to pay attention to this. Look, there's this most important point that I need to share. South African government was reviewed on the 16th of November in 2022, and at the UN's Human Rights Council. They were reviewed on the killings and intimidations on human rights defenders, including the whistleblowers. And recommendations were advanced by other states in that city, whereby recommendations were going like, there need to be a legal framework or model law that is developed to recognize and protect human rights defenders, including whistleblowers. And our government, fortunately, which is actually was a good move, they accepted those recommendations and they promised to say, we will deliver on this. So it is the commitment that they've made at an international level that we want to work with and help them to develop and implement them on the ground so that we can save lives. And remember, with regard to human rights defenders and including whistleblowers, they are doing the work that the government should be doing. One is to protect its own citizens and the rights of its own citizens. Now, the whistleblowers and the human rights defenders are doing the work, but they are not being appreciated.
Well, not just appreciated. Now we know whistleblowers are in big trouble. I mean, there we are. Let's leave it at that. I think thank you for your time. Appreciate that. But I think the broader context here is this, that the role of whistleblowers is critically important, especially with regard to, issues of corporate crime. But then it appears that they are then extremely vulnerable in terms of their lives, in terms of their careers, and we've seen so many examples of that. So the context of that, we know about the Babita story, the tragic story, and then Arthur Williams making the point yesterday once again that he's effectively in exile from a democratic South Africa that he loves, because after he testified at the Zondo Commission, he couldn't get jobs here at high-profile places where he was able to do so before, universities and other big corporates, and he was warned that his life is in danger if he sticks around here. So, I mean, how do you reconcile all of those things? And perhaps you can give me a thought. Have you ever been a whistleblower? Have you stepped back from being a whistleblower purely for the reason that you feel unprotected? How big a deal is that? 0614 104 107. You can also call into 086 000 2032. In fact, let me take some of your WhatsApp comments as well.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Do we really need the AG to tell us about the fruitless expenditure, if that is what they call looting? Do we really need the AG? I think it's an irrelevant office, because nothing gets done, nobody gets suspended, nobody gets fired, nobody is held accountable. That is a fruitless office, in my view. We don't need her to tell us quarter after quarter, year after year, that there's so much losses incurred.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you. Can you imagine if we don't have an Auditors General? That means, are you suggesting that nothing must be audited on the national level? The question is not what the Auditor General is a monitoring body. The question is what happens next when they tell you there are fruitless exercises of expenditure that are unexplained and that sort of thing. The question is, what do the departments then do about that? That's really the issue. Not so much whether they should not be audited. Can you imagine no auditing? Goodness, man, we'd even go into a worse situation than we are now. Here's another one about the city of Tshwane.
Ashraf, it's William here from East London. I'll tell you what this is all about. This is all about the political parties in charge of Tshwane not very happy that other political parties are doing the work on their behalf, because, actual fact, they are stealing the limelight from the ruling political parties. So it's very much a sour grape issue, and that's the bottom line of it. There's actually nothing else behind it, because you have to be as thick as a sack of hammers if you're going to say to someone, hey, I don't want the free service. I don't want this anymore. I want you to stop. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Well, others have said something similar, and I hear you. Whether you're right, I don't know. I just think it's a lot more complicated than that. I do think, as I've said, even if AfriForum does good work, you also don't want to have a carte blanche situation. But by the way, I spoke to the new mayor a week ago. In fact, we'll play some of her sound bites. Not quite now. We'll do that just now. Maybe time for one more. No, we'll do that later on. What I'll do is, by the way, going to chat. There's a lot of 100-day conversations taking place. So the Free Market Foundation, well, they have their own view of the 100 days of the GNU after this.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Baye!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Right, 100 days of the GNU, 100 days according to different parties. What about the 100 days according to the Free Market Foundation? So they have a view on this. Dr. Mornay Malan is the Free Market Foundation's Deputy Head of Policy. Dr. Malan, appreciate your time. First up, thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. So I would take it, part of this would be your own reflections on the 100 days, certainly from an economic point of view. What do you make of it?
Yes, I believe that on balance, what we've seen from the GNU, and in particular what we've seen from the sentiment towards the GNU, has been quite positive. But we're actually now in a situation where it's clear that in the short term, at least, the economic prospects all seem to be pointing in the right direction. We just now have to move towards a position where we can lock in those short-term gains and make sure that in both the medium and in the long term, we can capitalize on the gains that have been made. And so far, that unfortunately, the only concern that we have is that whilst we're quite happy with a bit of a shake-up in terms of personality, we'd also like to see a bit more of a turn when it comes to policy.
Okay, let's stay with the personalities for now. You're saying that if there's some gains that have been made, would you then attribute that to the GNU? Would you attribute that to these different political parties with different ideologies and agendas actually working together?
Yes, certainly. There certainly is. The fact of the GNU is definitely positive in terms of the sentiment of the market towards government, the sentiment of investors towards South Africa, and the fact that we had a very peaceful, very productive transition of power. Even in international terms, it was incredibly successful. So definitely the very fact that we do have a GNU is in and of itself positive.
Okay, you do, however, have a view on what you call a dramatic overhaul of South Africa's trade policy environment. Tell me about that.
Yes, well, as I alluded to earlier, whilst we are happy with the short-term gains that have been made, we do believe that despite certain changes of certain figures within government and the cooperation between various parties, regardless of ideology, that there's yet to be a very clear policy direction in terms of economic policy or policy in general. There's been a delay of certain policies, but there hasn't really been an affirmative step. What we believe should happen is that, or what we're trying to accomplish is to provide that direction. And one of the first things that we're focusing on is on the matter of free trade and on the matter of international trade and exchange, where this has been almost universally recognized as, the engine of growth. Most of today's advanced economies they grew thanks to international trade.
So give me an example of how you assess South Africa's own trade policy right now, and what would you change?
Yes, well, we published a policy paper earlier today. People are welcome to view that at libertyfirst.co.za. And the three factors that we actually focus on in the paper are, on the one hand, free trade, on the second hand, opening up financial markets, and on the third point is just the opening up international travel. So just to summarize it, it's focused on eliminating restrictive tariffs, reducing the unnecessary regulations that contribute to non-tariff based barriers to trade, and then finally just opening up our borders and making sure that it's easier for people to move both their capital as well as their persons into and out of our borders, so that they can contribute to flourishing internationally and locally, just to integrate us into the international economy.
So when you talk about opening up the borders, it's interesting. Often we talk about opening up the borders to allow foreign nationals to come and live here. That's a different conversation, right? This one, in terms of outflows, do you not see outflows of capital, and it has to be regulated? Otherwise, it's already been loosened, certainly from the time that Trevor Manuel was in charge, I know, over the years. But are you calling even for more so? And how do you see that playing out?
Yes, well, you see, the thing about capital is that it really can't be contained. Capital will find a way to get the best return that it can find. And that's actually one of the points at which South Africa performs worst, is with regard to financial openness. We have, unfortunately, just inherited the atrocious capital controls of the apartheid-era government, these foreign exchange controls, which make it impossible to take money out of South Africa, which also means that money that has been taken out of South Africa is almost impossible to repatriate. We believe that, particularly with regard to that capital, open up the financial system, make sure that we can benefit from those deep and sophisticated financial markets that we have. Let the capital get a return internationally, and provide a environment in South Africa that coaxes people into investing into South Africa, rather than trying to constrain them through force.
Okay, let's see if others agree with you. Dr. Morne Malandi, Free Market Foundation's Deputy Head of Policy, talking about an overhaul of the trade policy environment in our country, particularly around the outflows of capital. Capital will find the place where they get the best returns, is what he says. Is he spot on, or do you think there needs to be greater checks and balances? Now, let's go back to an issue we spoke about earlier on. We touched on the issue of AfriForum and the city of Tshwane. And you know that an MMC today has made the point that the current situation regarding an MOU for AfriForum, to be able to assist the city of Tshwane with their cleaning ups, he said it's just wasteful, it's a waste of time, and he calls for it to be scrapped. They clearly defend their position. But a few days ago, I chatted to Dr. Nasipi Moya, the now new city of Tshwane mayor. She spoke about a few things, but she spoke about the issue of the MOU as well.
So when it comes to the AfriForum MOU, AfriForum is not the only organization in which the city has an MOU with, for various reasons. Now, I don't think it makes sense to be selecting, parts of the residents of the city like that. I think it's unfair on them. We committed, even in my speech, we committed that we're going to serve the residents of the city equally. So, and also that we're going to be open to business and partnership with everyone, all the stakeholders in the city. But I do think, obviously for us, we need to have a discussion among ourselves in terms of what are their discomforts. Do they think there was something illegal about the MOU? But for now, I would not be a person that want to select who is, the genuine resident of the Tshwane we want to work with, while we have made the pronouncement that this government is going to be for all residents of Tshwane.
Okay, that's an opinion. What do you make of that? And that broader question, this government will be for all the citizens of Tshwane. That according to the now new mayor, Dr. Nasipi Moya. Let's get the news headlines on a hectic day, of course. Yes, Madupi.
Thank Thank you very much, Ashraf, and good afternoon. In your headlines, former Joburg Mayor Kabelo Kwamanda has been placed on special leave effective immediately following his arrest last week on fraud charges. The Post Office and the SABC topped the list of state-owned enterprises that have incurred the highest fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Israel, where he will try to revive the dialogue for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage releases. And those are your headlines. Greg will have your full update at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview is slow moving on both routes towards Giluli's interchange. The M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown interchange towards Boysons. Christian de Wet Road in Strubens Valley is where police incidents reported near Clearwater Mall, so expect delays and diversions. The N1 northbound in Centurion has a crash reported near Botha Avenue and Atterbury Road westbound in Pretoria, slow moving at Justice Mohammed Street. In KZN, heavy rain reported in the Mpangeni and Richards Bay areas, so reduce your speeds and drive with care. The N3 northbound has a tanker crash reported at Moirafir. The N2 northbound has a stationary truck reported after Spaghetti Junction, and the M4 northbound has a crash reported near the Isaiah Tangase Road. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road. Main Road northbound is queuing through Fish Hoek. Komiki Road is queuing at Masipumalele, and Albert Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Okay, cricket in the first hour, football in the second hour.
Yes, Banyana are getting their COSAFA Women's Championship campaign underway against Namibia at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium today. And South Africa are looking to do better than they did last year, where they failed to advance past their group stage. And head coach Maud Khumalo says that the players understand the significance of this tournament.
Being a host, it's a pressure on its own. And also remember, when you look at the history of Banyana with regards to this tournament, COSAFA, they've won it 3 years back, and then also in your home soil, you need to give supporters something to talk about, and then it's something that they want to see. It's like results, because you have an advantage of playing at home. So the players did explain to them, it's going to be a pressure, and then the first game, it's going to give us a direction. Are we going forward, or are we still going to work hard to go forward? You understand? So for us playing with Namibia, it's gonna make the players aware that we are really in the tournament, and then the first game, it's more like the final, so that we have an upper hand in the tournament, so that the nerves ziba at ease, things like that. Yeah.
Well, kickoff is at 5 p.m. There's also some football action to look forward to today with regards to the Champions League action. And Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta has called on his side to use the pain of their first defeat in 6 months in the league against Bournemouth as motivation for their Champions League clash against Shakhtar Donetsk. Meanwhile, Aston Villa defender Matty Cash says that he's hoping his dream will come true against Bologna in the Champions League. Villa take on the Serie A side in their third game of the season's top European Cup competition. And then in the pick of the night, Borussia Dortmund play host to Real Madrid, and kickoff is at 9 p.m. In cricket, South Africa's Public Affairs Executive, Rufence Sinners, praised the Proteas women for reaching the ICC Women's T20 World Cup for the second time in succession. The Proteas landed this morning at the OR Tambo International Airport after finishing as runners-up in the tournament to lose the coveted trophy at the hands of New Zealand by 32 runs on Sunday evening in Dubai. And Sinners believes that it's only a matter of time for South Africa to lift the silverware.
Reaching back-to-back finals for Proteas women is no mean feat. The team made history last year with the 2023 T20 World Cup by being the first national cricket team ever to reach a World Cup final. We were hoping to take it over the line this time and actually win the tournament itself, but I guess it wasn't our day. But to the team, I'd like to say upward and onward. Let us not be discouraged. we're still moving in the right direction. And it is only a matter of time. We will lift that silverware.
Then moving on to tennis, Poland's Iga Swiatek will play in the Billie Jean King Cups finals in Malaga in November, where they face host Spain in the opening match. Now, Swiatek has not played since her US Open quarterfinal defeat by Jessica Pegula in September. And after deciding to miss the WTA Tour's Asian swing due to fatigue, the 23-year-old lost her number one position to Belarusian Arina Sabalenka. Now, Swiatek, who parted ways with her coach Thomas Witkowski earlier this month and has since added Wim Fissette to her team, will also take part in November's WTA finals in Riyadh, giving her a chance to reclaim top spot in the world rankings. Still staying with tennis, world number 6 Taylor Fritz says that the International Tennis Federation's decision to allow off-court coaching from 2025 could just ruin the one and versus that one strategy and mental elements of the game. Now, the ITF announced yesterday that off-court coaching will be allowed from the 1st of January, following a decision made at the governing body's annual general meeting this month. It is said that the change would make tennis fairer and potentially more entertaining. Off-court coaching has already been implemented on a trial basis in all 4 Grand Slams, as well as the ATP and WTA tours since 2023. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now.
I tell you what, I was listening to the CEO of Cricket South Africa, and she made the point about it's just a matter of time. So let me, until they win the World Cup. Yes. So let me say this, I would love that to happen. The men's team, the women's team. But, and this is important, this thing about saying it's just a matter of time, that is taking it for granted.
You think?
Yes. It just never is a matter of time, meaning you have to fight every time for it. You can't, it's not going to be given to you. But you start from scratch, because what you did in the last World Cup is irrelevant now.
That's true.
Very quickly irrelevant, right? There are great, for example, I think Spain, in fact, when Spain won the World Cup in 2010, it was the first time they ever won the World Cup in their history. And they're one of the great football nations. So I'm just giving, and I think England went through a long period without winning the One-Day World Cup as well. Yeah. They're probably one of the last of the established nations outside of South Africa to win it. So all I'm saying is I would love it, but I'm also saying don't take it for granted as if it's like being dished out to you. No, you have to, because the same teams that lost are plotting already to win the next one.
Of course, but I think Sinners is coming from a point of view that, listen, just because you lost it yet again in the finals does not necessarily mean that you're never ever going to win it.
Well, that I agree with you. On the other hand, just because you lost 2 finals in a row doesn't mean you're going to win the third one. Both ways.
2 sides of
Do
the
I
coin.
want them to win? Absolutely. Nothing would make me more happier than our cricket team performing and our football team joining the Springboks as world champions. Just
Absolutely.
So you know. Yeah.
The SAFM University Debate Challenge will be taking over the Western Cape. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, the 25th of October 2024 at the SABC Cape Town M1 Studios, where the University of Cape Town will be taking on the University of the Western Cape in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent, non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. RSVP to info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Okay, I'm not playing, but it could be you. And listen to this one, 74 million rands in total estimated Powerball and Powerball Plus jackpots could be your ticket to the big millions this Tuesday. So that's tonight, right? Play Powerball for an estimated 15 million rands and then the Powerball Plus for an estimated 59 million rands today. So you get your tickets in store at the nationallottery.coza or the mobile app or cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529 hash for USSD Panda Push-Up Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the numbers now with Makwe Masilela, as always, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, talk to us about what local and global markets in a moment, but first up, Sasfin's yearly results.
Yeah. Afternoon to you and to your listeners. Remember, Sasfin in March 2023, they announced a strategic reset, and since then they sold their specialized finance and commercial solutions business, their commercial property finance, closed their foreign exchange business. All this resulted in once-off cost and short-term loss of revenue opportunities, though the balance sheet was strengthened. Group headline earnings per share fell by 152%, total income down 8%, return on equity down 154%, and deposit from customers down almost 5%. And as of the rise in the 10-year yield is causing confusion that maybe the U.S. economy is growing too rapidly and the employment remains too resilient. As a result, the Fed might end up being slower to lower interest rates, and there's an increased expectation that Trump's win will, when it comes to the U.S. election, that the proposed tariffs and the tax policies are seen as likely to keep U.S. interest rates high and undermine currencies of trading partners. Market participants are paring back their expectations for Fed rate cuts after central bank officials indicated a preference for reducing rates at a slower pace. And the IMF lowered its global growth forecast for next year because of wars and governments protecting their economies. But the guys gave credit to central banks for taming inflation without tilting economies into a recession, and the yellow metal near record highs, benefiting from rising geopolitics, U.S. elections uncertainties, and prospects of central banks reducing rates. Gold is up 0.6% at 2,785, platinum up 1.3% at 1,018, and oil prices continue to heat up at the back of the possible impact of Chinese stimulus and escalating Middle East conflict. Brent crude is up 2% at $75 a barrel, and rising rates are weighing on stocks, with the JSE down 0.5%, tracked mainly by our financials, and the rand has firmed almost 0.4% against the US dollar. It's now 17.52, 22.74 against the pound, and 18.95 against the euro.
Perfect. As always, thanks for that, Makwe Masilela. We'll have another update from you tomorrow, but certainly another market update coming up from Jimmy Moyaha in about just about 50 minutes or so. Right. Okay. Time for your calls, time for your opinions, time for whatever it is you wish to get off your chest, because it is the National Pulse. So to a large degree, when I ask that question, what for you moves the national pulse, you internalize it, and your opinion about the big issues and my opinion may not be the same. What we do here on the show is we like to think we reflect the national pulse and we have our fingers on the pulse, but how you internalize it is very much up to you. So what are the big issues you want to talk about? So here's one about sport.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and our SAFM sports minister. Listen, sports minister, second runner-up is not good enough in sport. Go ahead and ask even the athletes. It's not good enough being second runner-up. There's nothing to celebrate. You know, number one, yeah, you see people will go out to welcome them in their numbers.
Tell you what, Firdaus Munda, who's a writer and cricket commentator, wrote a piece about the trials and tribulations of finishing second. Oh, I read it. I mean, I felt the same way. I can just imagine how the players felt, right? And Trantla in KZN, let's get your thoughts on the BRICS summit.
Good afternoon, my brother. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Go ahead. What's your point?
I'm good. See, my brother, on the issue of the BRICS, what we've outlined with your SAPC presenter there, it's a good idea to have BRICS so that we can get to end the restrictions of the USA on the people of the world. You see, I mean the NATO. NATO hasn't been a good thing in the whole world, and all these problems that you are facing is because of them.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. I mean, the BRICS is not a political arm as you would think of it as a defense force. So comparing it to NATO may be different, but it definitely is a coming together, a grouping of countries with basically developing nations. Although I understand now it's close to just under 50%, like 43% of the nations of the world in terms of population numbers would belong to the BRICS, and that is some clout. So Nhlanhla, thanks for that. Let's get another opinion from Babalwa in Gqeberha. Hi.
Hi, how's it, Ashraf?
Yeah, I'm good indeed. Go ahead, Babalwa.
Good, man. No, man, I just saw an article in the news, I think 24 this morning, saying 54 million was spent by, I think in 3 months, in deporting around about 19,000 illegal immigrants in South Africa. And I was wondering, yeah, that's a lot of money, man. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I think that story has been updated, by the way, because I think Action SA, they've just tweeted now, right? And they're saying, and I'm quoting them, just listen to this one. They're saying, Action SA is outraged by the escalating crisis of illegal immigration, with an astonishing 200 million rands wasted on deporting undocumented foreigners since 2002. So this is a report that's come out, and the number put down is 200 million rands, the cost of people in the country that you now send back out of the country. Okay, yeah. All right. Got that, Babawa? Right, let's get further comments, and one of them is in the city of what? Tshwane, Pretoria?
Ashraf, it's William here from East London. I'll tell you what this is all about. This is all about the political parties in charge of Tshwane not very happy that other political parties are doing the work on their behalf, because actual fact they are stealing the limelight from the ruling political parties. So it's very much a sour grape issue, and that's the bottom line of it. There's actually nothing else behind it, because you have to be as thick as a sack of hammers if you're going to say to someone, hey, I don't want the free service, I don't want this anymore, I want you to stop. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Well, I'll tell you what, just your initial point about this is about political parties effectively outdoing each other. Welcome to South Africa. In fact, not welcome to South Africa, welcome to the world. Include the USA, include the UK, include every other country in the world. There are political parties. I see Pakistan's got the issues. I think Turkey's got the issues. I'm running through all the countries. Kenya. That's what political parties do. That is why it is the reality of democracy. Democracy is critical, but too often political parties do put their party first, because if you get voted in from branch level, your first vote to stay in power is not the masses, it's to get the branch support. So you toe the branch line. That's an interesting one.
Hi, Ashraf. Willie here in Kuma. Ashraf, why suddenly or nowadays people would break or defy the rules of grammar by saying with regards to instead of with regard to? There's no S there. With regards to Why suddenly or nowadays people are defying the rules of grammar by talking like that? Thanks, Twili in Kuma.
Thanks. You're laughing again. I was going to say, with regards to what are you talking about? But let me keep quiet on that one. Right, we're going to get to another guest, and we'll take some other calls after this.
Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Myths versus facts. I'm too young to get breast cancer. Many women under age 40 are diagnosed with breast cancer. Men can't get breast cancer. 1 in 922 men have a lifetime risk of breast cancer. I have never had children and can therefore not get breast cancer. Women who haven't had children or only had them after 30 have an increased risk of breast cancer. Breast Cancer Awareness Month on SAFM. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Let me remind you, and I'm saying this very, very intentionally, because I have Themba Gwejela, the SABC Group Executive for Corporate Affairs and Marketing, listening in on this conversation, right? So please download the SABC Plus app. And I'm saying that because that's the basis of our conversation coming up next. We talk, tech and marketing regularly on these features. So let's talk about that in terms of where the SABC Plus app, the platform that is, where it is now and where is it heading. Themba, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Ashraf. Good afternoon to you and your listeners, both online on SABC Plus as well as via traditional means.
Thank you so much. Right now, I rejoined the SABC or SAFM a few months ago, and at that time, I think within a few weeks, we spoke about the relaunch of the SABC Plus app, right? And I understand that since then, this just probably would have been May maybe, that there has been significant advancement in terms of momentum. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so the first time the SABC introduced SABC Plus was actually way back in 2022. However, what happened in July of this year is we relaunched the SABC Plus app, obviously with new functionality, but as part of that relaunch, it meant that everyone who already had the app had to re-register. So when we talk about the growth of SABC Plus, we actually talk about a 3.5 months growth because everyone has had to start from zero come July this year. So when you look at that, we've just hit 500,000 registration. That's a significant growth within just a space of 3 months and 15 days. And I think that makes us the fastest growing OTT platform in the country at the moment. Really something worth celebrating.
Okay, so when you say 500,000, you mean 500,000 unique people have downloaded this SABC Plus app, right?
Yes, it's 500,000 unique people have registered on the app.
Okay, what's the benefit? I mean, we have an interesting audience here. There are people listening who are completely switched on to an app and they know exactly what it is. And people like me, I'll certainly listen to streaming live wherever I am, right? And then you have others who are listening on radio and it's only radio. And I often tell people when they're not available to a radio, I said, listen to us on streaming live, and it's clearly alien to them. So what I'm saying to you is I'm speaking to two different audiences. So when we talk about the SABC Plus app, I mean, tell me what is the makeup of the app compared to listening on traditional radio or in this case, watching on TV?
Yeah. I think it's quite widely known that the world is ever-changing, and in terms of how people consume content, both visual content as well as audio content, that's obviously now largely driven by technology. So OTT platforms and apps have become the way that people consume their content. So the SABC has introduced SABC Plus to exactly deliver its content through that. So what we've got on the platform itself is all of our TV content, both the live content, so you can watch the likes of SABC 1, 2, 3, sport, news, etc. On the platform. But you can also use our video on demand functionality where you can pull certain content via video and you can watch that at your own leisure. You can also do podcasts and you can then listen to all of our 19 radio stations at your own time, again live via the app. So it's a new way of listening to radio, but I think what it does is it links really well to our public mandate of universal access, because I think traditionally radio has always been kind of provided within the FM network, which restricts you in terms of if you are out of a certain area, you therefore cannot listen because you don't have proper coverage in that area. I think what this does is that it opens a lot of our content to people anywhere at any time, which is really in line with the SABC Plus pay of line at the moment. So it's really about providing that universal access.
Okay, let's understand this, right? Are you saying if you download the app, the SABC Plus app, obviously you need Wi-Fi connectivity to listen, you'd be able to watch TV, you'd be able to listen to radio in the same way as if normally you'd switch on a TV and listen to radio on radio, right? And would you get the same level of clarity as you would normally do?
Yes, you do. In most instances, in fact, I think the clarity is actually even better, depending obviously on your connectivity. So you spoke to the idea of Wi-Fi. A lot of South Africans do not have Wi-Fi, so we take that into account. But you can use normal data as well, again, bearing in mind the cost of data. But in terms of clarity, the content, both the audio and the visual, is certainly a lot more clearer, I think, than traditional means.
Now, from an SABC perspective, I mean, it's one thing, bragging about 500,000 downloads, and that's fantastic. But do you want to move away from traditional audiences towards apps? How do you manage the two?
We could never move away from traditional audiences into apps. I think it's about being able to provide all of the content and the information that's mandated to us and the commercial content in a way that resonates or in a way that's preferred by audiences. So if Ashraf prefers to listen in traditional means, we must be able to provide that. And if a member prefers to watch on the go and on demand, we must be able to provide that. So I think it's about broadening the scope in terms of being able to provide that universal access, but not moving away from one aspect.
So in fact, you'd have them side by side?
Absolutely.
Okay, big question. What about advertising side by side?
Advertising. I think
we may have just lost Temba just for a moment. Let me just see if we can reconnect with him. We did talk about side by side. Let's see if we can do that, because I think that's an interesting thought. I mean, you have any opinions about how, when things change and how they move? Let me just see in the meantime if I can play this voice note.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, these politicians, man. If ANC comes in public and say ANC government has built RDP houses, these politicians, these political parties, they say, no, it's not the ANC, it's the government. Then comes the same ANC minister who built those RDPs. If he is corrupt, if anything goes wrong, they say ANC government. So which one is which now? Which one is which really? Man, we waste a lot of time on small things. I want to hear these people arguing about, competing about service delivery. Not these petty issues, man. Come on, man. Norman from Brixton.
Thanks, Norman. Saying it exactly how a citizen of a city or a country thinks, right? Which is ultimately, what do you want? You want service delivery. Temba Gwejela back with us, SABC Group Executive. Temba, so you were talking about advertising. I was saying, yes, if you have audiences on two platforms, I mean, how far are you down the line where you are able to not even retain, but actually gain new advertisers who would specifically want to advertise on the app portal?
Yeah, we have started monetizing the platform, and I think our advertisers have quite a nice opportunity within SABC Plus, and that we can offer a lot more tailored solutions because obviously, unlike traditional advertising, I think we are able to tailor this a bit better. So we started actually monetizing the platform, and I think our advertisers already have taken up the opportunities to place the advertising within that. There's a lot of scope to be able to place in-app advertising, both, before consuming content, but also during the consumption of that content. So a work in progress. I think we're in the early stages of that monetization journey, but certainly something that we are working on, and
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. People can advertise both on this show and the same thing on the same show, flighted on the app, right? Is there a last thing you'd like to bring up in terms of the innovations being planned within SABC with regard to digital?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I was saying, is there one more thing you'd like to add that you'd like to share with us regarding some of the gains and plans for SABC regarding the digital platforms?
Yeah, so I think in terms of this latest installment of the app, I think I would just like to encourage those who are listening to look at the fact that now it's available, and I think previously it wasn't. It's available actually on your smart TVs at home across a variety of operating systems. So iOS TV, Android, the Huawei's, just about anyone. I think recently we've also added CarPlay for Apple CarPlay, so for people to be able to listen to radio and podcasts on the go. So that's quite a nice opportunity in terms of where we've evolved. But from a content perspective, we're obviously making a lot of effort to ensure that some of the old content that people really, really love and enjoy, that we make that available on video on demand so that they can watch at their leisure. We've seen the trends as well in terms of how when we've got special events like the sport games, when we had the Olympics, when we had the rugby game in New Zealand versus South Africa, we see quite a spike in registration. So I think a lot more investment in efforts around bringing live events onto the platform. The likes of Miss SA really did well. I think Bonang's show also did well. So we are learning as we go, and we see what kind of content and resonate with those who are consuming our content via the platform, and we'll make sure that we invest in putting a lot more of that type of content to make it really work. But I think, like I said, it's a really exciting journey ahead, and we'll keep our viewers updated as we progress.
And for now, just remember that I listen to the SABC platforms, some of them on radio. I listen on TV, and I also listen via SABC Plus, and I listen on streaming live. So I think I cover all the bases just as a consumer of SABC content now that you know. Themba Gwejana, the SABC Group Executive for Corporate Affairs and Marketing. The SABC Plus platform, 500,000 plus downloads of new followers. You could be making it 500,001 if you do that right now. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg Hose.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, former Joburg mayor placed on special leave and one person killed in mall shootout. Good evening. The former Johannesburg mayor, Kabelo Kwamanda, has been placed on special leave, effective immediately following his arrest last Friday. According to the NPA, he appeared in the Protea Magistrates Court on the same day, together with his co-accused. They're charged with fraud amounting to 12,000 rand. However, they were both released on bail, and the case has been postponed to December. City of Johannesburg spokesperson Intatisi Modingwane.
The severity of these allegations demand a proactive response to protect the integrity of the office of the executive mayor. In line with the city's commitment to integrity, good governance and accountability, the executive mayor has decided to place MMC Kwamanda on special leave, effective immediately, and relieve him of all his executive duties.
One person's been shot and killed at the Clearwater Mall in Roodepoort, west of Johannesburg. This follows a business robbery that took place at a jewelry store a short while ago. It's believed a shootout ensued between the suspects and the security guards. Gauteng police have confirmed that 4 suspects have been arrested so far. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi says the high levels of crime in the province can be linked to poor service delivery. He was speaking during the release of the Quality of Life survey in Sandton, north of Johannesburg today. The survey was done by the Gauteng City Region Observatory in partnership with the Gauteng government, the University of Johannesburg, Wits University and Selga. It's done every 2 to 3 years and measures progress in terms of safety, health, socio-economic status and the quality of life of Gauteng residents. Lesufi says there's a need for a massive response to the escalating levels of crime.
To me, it means massive intervention at the level of fighting crime. And that's the aspect that we've elevated as government. That if you can't fight crime in Gauteng, forget about everything. That level of crime is completely unacceptable.
The Post Office and the SABC top the list of state-owned enterprises that have incurred the highest fruitless and wasteful expenditure. According to the Office of the Auditor General, the Post Office has incurred 650 million rand in fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and the public broadcaster more than 165 million rand. The AG briefed Parliament's Standing Committee on Appropriations on the offending departments in respect of irregular, wasteful and fruitless expenditure over the past 5 financial years. The head of the audit unit at the Auditor General is Bongi Ngoma.
Translate to about 2 billion for 27 SOEs, and the top 10 is listed there in the slide. Of course, leading the pack being the South African Post Office, followed by SABC, and the list goes on.
Meanwhile, the Office of the AG says procurement irregularities have been identified as one of the major issues when it comes to the SABC. The business unit leader at the AG's office, Seiban Stuvech.
What we see in that environment, we often get procurement irregularities, where they engage to get services, but through the process, what Ms. Ngoma has explained in terms of evaluating, in terms of the procurement processes, they have not elected the preferential supplier, which then creates a situation where it doesn't conform to legislation, irregular expenditure, but no consequences are taken after that.
The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's arrived in Israel, where he'll try and revive a dialogue for a Gaza ceasefire and the release of hostages. The U.S. hopes that the death of the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar will provide a new opportunity for peace. The BBC's Jonah Fisher has more.
The meeting has just started between Antony Blinken and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu here in Israel. I think any idea that this visit by Antony Blinken might pave the way for a ceasefire, or that we're a few steps before that might be realistic, but I think what they will be talking about is what Gaza might look like after a deal in terms of who will control it. Israel, of course, doesn't want Hamas to be involved in any administration. And then perhaps the most achievable thing that Antony Blinken could perhaps be looking at today with the Israelis is ways of getting more humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip.
The top story, the former Joburg Mayor Kabelo Kwamanda has been placed on special leave, effective immediately. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Close.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Banyana looking to start COSAFA Women's Championship on a high, and Snyman returns for Springboks November Internationals. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Victory Road westbound in Emmarentia, slow moving at Barry Herzog Avenue. The N1 northbound in Midrand, slow moving towards Samrand Road. In Santon Drive westbound, slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive. Greyston Drive eastbound is queuing at Linden Street. In Pretoria, Atterbury Road westbound is slow moving at Justice Mohammed Street, and Eskempatleli Drive northbound has delays towards Mabopane Highway. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a stationary truck reported after Spaghetti Junction. The N3 westbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 northbound has a tanker crash reported at Moederfield, and the R102 is slow moving near Mount Moriah Drive. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krombom Road exit. The M3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive, and the N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound slow moving at Voortrekker Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Channel your fearless side on Afternoon Express Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3 when oncologist Dr. Lazan Langewerfen talks about why early detection and regular screening are key to beating breast cancer. We also chat to a radiologist to give us insights on breast cancer in men. Then we hear breast cancer survivor Lauren Juppy's uplifting story. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Southern African Queens are back on the battlefield. 14 teams will tackle each other in the search of the ultimate glory. This is the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Women's Championship 2024. Witness the great contest by regional football queens from 22 October to 2 November 2024. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. For the love of the game.
Right, lots to come. In fact, we'll chat to Zwelinzima Vavi coming up pretty shortly, so looking forward to that conversation. But you'd do well to take heed of this, right? So 74 million rands in total. Estimated Powerball and Powerball Plus jackpots could be your ticket to the big million this Tuesday. Now, I don't play, but if you're up to it, well, here you are. Play Powerball for an estimated 15 million rands and then Powerball Plus for an estimated 59 million rands today. You can buy your tickets now in store on the nationallottery.coza. The mobile app is another option via cell phone banking, or simply dial star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. So Panda Pusha Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud sponsor, or operator in this case, not sponsor, delete, operator of the National Lottery.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, we have a feature called Winning, which is the last feature we do on the show every day around 10 to 6, and it talks about people, organizations are best in class, winning in their field. We'll chat today to Pepe Marais, who's the co-founder of the Joe Public Agency. They were the winners of the Agency of the Year at the 2024 Loeries Awards. So we'll talk to him. Looking forward to that conversation. Do not miss that. Well, don't miss this now. Let's talk about labour law and who says what around it. The South African Federation of Trade Unions, that's SAFTU, they've held a media briefing in Joburg today on the country's labour law amendments. There's concerns. The trade union themselves have rejected the labour laws amendment bill, vowing to fight what it calls a legal offence against workers' rights. So what does that really mean? Let's get the thoughts of the General Secretary of SAFTU, Zwelithini Vavi. Zwelithini, good chatting to you once again. Hi.
Hi, Ash. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good.
Different to everybody.
Different day, different environment. I would take it, right. Let's talk about today's media briefing and your specific or your organization's specific concerns. What are they?
Well, we see these amendments not in isolation to the broader assault and attacks on the working class and the attack of the living standards, the worsening crisis of unemployment, poverty and inequality, the escalating and unaffordable food prices now hitting 15% consistently every year, the proposed tariff increase in Eskom, which will be 36% plus 10%. The municipalities are levying on that 36%, which will make 46%. And the general cost of living that makes workers to really feel that they are under squeeze. And so as we're looking at these attacks on our living standards, there comes proposals that will worsen that situation. And here are the brief issues we've raised in our statement.
Okay.
Firstly, they're making a proposal that workers can be dismissed and be charged without a disciplinary hearing being convened. And in this case, the employer can merely request the worker to provide written reasons why they should not be dismissed. And if the worker does not provide written reasons, or the worker is providing weak reasons in the employer's eyes, then the worker gets dismissed without a hearing. Secondly, they want to take away the rights of new and younger workers, in particular those that are younger than 30 years, in that they're saying that for the first 6 months, an employer can dismiss a younger worker without the protections offered to the rest of the other workers in the same workplace. And that this means that the employers and the government want to have an unrestricted right to dismiss newly employed workers without following the due process. And for 6 months, they want to do that. And they say that they do that for employment creation. Thirdly, they want unfair labor practices to be limited, in that they're saying if the dispute you want to pursue as a worker have anything to do with your promotion, your demotion, your employee training and other benefits, you can be dismissed and without having to the employer having to certify the CCMA that the dismissal is unfair. And they want to extend the labor broker system beyond the 3 months. Remember, we scored a massive victory in the Constitutional Court in the matter that NUMSA took up and with another company, and where the Constitutional Court declared that a worker must be deemed to be employed by his employer or her employer after 3 months of having been brought in the workplace by a labor broker. They want to extend that to 6 months. In fact, the employers in Nedlac were asking for 12 months. So the employers want to amend the national minimum wage such that the minimum wage will now calculate other benefits the worker receives from his employer. For example, if the employer gives you lunch or provides you a bag of meals in the farm, they want that included in the calculation for the national minimum wage, which will bring down the value of the national minimum wage.
Okay.
And they are taking the right to strike, and they want to make it very difficult for us to embark on Section 77 strikes as it is the case now. So those are the range of issues. I can go for more. There are more.
No, we'll leave it at that. So, I mean, certainly on face value, people listening in, I think without knowing maybe the other side of the story, they may find that this is unfair. This doesn't make sense. Why would this be allowed to happen? So why then, in fact, would it be allowed to happen? Because the question I'm asking is, we appear to have a progressive country with a progressive constitution and a democracy. How does this firstly square up against the constitution? The points you've raised as per the amendment bill.
We doubt if it will pass the constitutional master, and we doubt if the constitution will agree that the younger workers must receive lesser rights in comparison to other workers in the same workplace. We doubt if the Constitutional Court will agree that if you have a dispute that have to do with your promotion, demotion, or training or benefits, you must not be entitled to the same rights, meaning that you can be dealt with. We doubt if the Constitutional Court will agree that you must be hired willy-nilly and be dismissed in 6 months without the proper protections. But you never know. The Constitutional Court is a instrument of a class rule itself. There's no guarantee.
Okay, so therefore, first things first for now, I mean, you had a media briefing today. What happens next for you?
We're convening shop steward councils all over, locals and the provincial level. We're gearing for a general strike. And we're calling on the other federations to do the same. But we are convinced that a general strike by the 4 federations will not force the government or the employers to change their mind. We need a broader mobilization of the working class as a whole. This is not, as we say, it's not just about the labor law amendments. This is about protecting the standards of living of the working class, and we pointed out that we are under a broader attack by the government and by the system of capitalism itself that wants to roll back all of the gains, even before we lay to rest Shepard Mdladlana or Membatis Mdladlana on Saturday, or just after we have buried Tito Mboweni this Saturday. In between, we must now defend the gains that we thought were guaranteed. Which goes back to the point that we always make. Under capitalism, there is no guaranteed and indefinite victory for workers. We must guard our victories.
Okay, I hear that. I mean, the counter argument to that would be, without the checks and balances of capitalism, on the one hand, and in another socialist economy, you'd have other problems. But that's another conversation for another time. Here's the last thing: has anybody from government or their representatives indicating a changing of views regarding the bill?
Not at all. There is a labor law amendment task team that has now produced its final report. This report will be tabled into the executive structures of NEDLAC before it is presented to Cabinet and to the parliamentary process. And once it is there, with the parliamentarians now all eyeing to go to Cabinet, you can get through anything because they don't play their role. Zondo have said so, and before that, the previous Constitutional Court judge, Mukwege, have pointed out the weaknesses in our parliamentary system. Guys are reducing themselves into yes men, yes pass, and instead of being the real representative of the people to ensure that the executive doesn't creep and take away the hard-won rights that are in the Constitution.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Zwelinzima Vavi, the SAFTU General Secretary. They were out in force today, effectively opposing or rejecting the Labour Laws Amendment Bill for many of the reasons that we've mentioned before. And if you've missed any of that, my suggestion, download immediately. Go to SABC, go to SAFM.COZA, just check it out on Twitter, but also maybe download the SABC Plus app. You'll find all those things that we spoke about in terms of podcasts. You can listen and re-listen, share it, and then debate it with your friends on whichever WhatsApp group you're a part of. I'll take further calls as well, and some of the issues that you think really, moves the national pulse today in a moment.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Bayede!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, certainly things changed dramatically one way or the other. I mean, a few weeks ago we had Kabelo Gwamanda was the mayor of the city of Joburg. He's certainly not the mayor any longer. He's the MMC, but even now, effectively he's been put on leave or is asked to be put on leave. That's exactly what we're going to find out. You may be aware. Yesterday we touched on it. He had a court appearance on Friday, and the court appearance linked to the fact that he somehow has been linked to some funeral policy scheme and allegations of fraud. And in fact, he's been charged on Friday for that reason. He has certainly commented since then. But now, as we move one step further, we understand that he's been put on leave. In fact, he's also tweeted the fact that he's on leave now, special leave to sort out the issues. But let's try and understand what's the backstory to this and what this really means with Ntatisi Modangwane, the City of Joburg spokesperson. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ashraf, and thank you to the listeners as well.
Thank you. So help us understand this. The former mayor has tweeted that he's on leave because he needs time to sort things out, to clear his mind and to clarify a lot of things. Is this his call that he's on leave, or has the call been made by the incumbent mayor to say you need to go on special leave?
The mayor of the city of Johannesburg, Councillor Dada Morara, after meeting with the MMC this morning, made a decision to place him on the special leave.
Okay, so it's the mayor's call.
It's the mayor's call, and it's with immediate effect. The issue is around the integrity of the office of the mayor itself, so that we allow the legal processes to happen. You can't have an office of the executive mayor running smoothly with a questionable issue that is happening in the public arena. So it needs to be resolved. So effectively from today, immediately, the MMC has been relieved of all his executive duties.
How did he respond to it? How did he take it?
Yeah, I was not part of the meeting. It was a bilateral between the mayor and the MMC, because MMCs are appointed by the executive mayor. It's the prerogative of the executive mayor to appoint a councillor that is serving in the city of Johannesburg as an MMC. So if there are issues that the mayor thinks that he needs to address with that particular MMC, it becomes a bilateral meeting where these discussions and decisions are made.
Okay, fair enough. But has the mayor indicated whether there was any pushback, or whether, what did the former mayor say? Can you tell us anything?
No, the mayor didn't indicate much. The mayor had to just make a decision and allow for the MMC to be relieved of his official duties, and then the mayor is applying his mind at the moment to appoint somebody in that position, because you can't leave it vacant for too long, because it affects service delivery.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, and that does suggest that because of the processes now that he appeared in, he gave himself up at the police station, he was there, and this issue could go on for a long time. So he could be, even if he does come back, and I'm not preempting anything, that he could be out of office for a long time here, right?
What is happening is that in terms of the city's processes as well, the mayor is obliged to report these issues to the Speaker of Council. You must remember that the Speaker is in charge of the entire council process. And the council process has the code of conduct for councillors and the ethics for councillors, and there's an integrity committee that needs to look into these issues. So, yeah, it might be a lengthy process. Besides the issue that the police are dealing with, but there are issues of integrity within the institution itself that has to be sorted out.
Yeah, now I don't have a statement with me, but I know that COSATU, amongst other, unions, had made the point that the vetting process in terms of appointing or electing officials needs to be changed. That means, and I say this because although he's been charged now, this issue regarding the former mayor has been going on for a long time, long before he became the mayor of the city of Joburg, and yet he was allowed to then take up office. So yes, he wasn't charged, he wasn't convicted, but if there's a sufficient grey area, why would one even, what does it say about our systems that we allow someone to take up not just any position, but effectively the mayor until a few weeks ago?
You must remember, Ashraf, that in terms of the country's laws, there is this principle that a person is innocent until proven guilty by the court of law. So what happens is that before even a person is submitted for a list by his or her political parties, IEC has some due diligence that they do in terms of acceptability of that person to contest as a councillor in the first place, and so forth. Yes, there might be other processes that the city will have to do post that as well. That would ensure that we protect the institution against people that are questionable or have a questionable past.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair enough, right? Is there any final point you'd like to share with us regarding the outgoing former mayor? Now, outgoing as in special leave. I need to get my words right here.
No, what we want to assure the people of Johannesburg is that, yes, we will follow all the prescript of law within the local government sphere to ensure that transparency is at the core. And we'll update the residents of Johannesburg on an ongoing basis on the development.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Appreciate your time, the spokesperson for the city of Johannesburg, Intatisi Moringwane. Thank you. Much appreciate your time. Let's get to some of the calls now. Mike in Newlands, you've got a thought. Go ahead.
Sure, thanks, Ashraf. Yeah, I think I've lost my mind here. Am I to understand from the gentleman that just spoke from the ANC that if a guy is vetted by them and there's a history of some action going on that might look a bit suspicious, yet he hasn't been found guilty, they can still go ahead and employ him? It doesn't occur to the ANC to say, well, hang on a second, if he's being investigated something, let's save some of the public's money and find somebody else. But you know what really I can't get over? Three other things. Al-Jamaa, the leader of Mr. Hendricks, the leader of the Al-Jamaa party, said this morning on the show this morning, he said, it is only like 12,000 Rand. It's not a big deal, and it was 10 years ago. So we've now got to the stage in this country where parties, if it's 100 Rand, it's fine. But if it's 12,000 rand, it's fine. If it's R1 million, it's a bad idea. I mean, we're talking about a guy here that cheated people out in their hour of need when their families have died.
Okay, but it's alleged. I mean, just hold it. It's alleged. Okay? But Mike, it's alleged. You remember that. He's got to still be convicted.
Okay, yes, alleged. It's alleged. Yeah. And my final point is this. He was cleared by Panyaza Lesufi's panel. He was vetted and cleared by the ANC after the DA told them categorically that this man would be problematic in light of the accusations that they're currently dealing with. But no, the ANC go ahead and you know what they do now? He's not serving any longer. Listen, I can't believe this. He was dealing with the ethical commitment to a capable state as part of the GNU with our deputy president.
Mike, I hear you, and you may well be correct on most accounts, but on the other hand, just for now, you actually now have the very same ANC you're talking about effectively taking action. So I'm just saying, I hear what you said before, but there's some action that's being taken. Sometimes it happens later than earlier, and there are many cases across the political spectrum where that applies as well. Right, 5:30, Greg Host with the news headlines.
Quick look at the headlines. I know you were saying the former Joburg Mayor Kabela Gwamanda has been placed on special leave following his arrest. The Markman Industrial Area and the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro has been identified as the most impacted economically by flooding, as there's a poor state of infrastructure. And the Zimbabwean president has congratulated the ruling Frelimo party in Mozambique on its election performance. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview queuing on both routes towards Kiluli's interchange. The N3 southbound in Edenvale has a crash reported before Modderfontein Road. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown interchange towards Boysons, and Christian de Wet Road in Strubens Valley is where police incidents reported near Clearwater Mall. So you're asked to expect delays and diversions. In KZN, heavy rain in the Empangeni and Richards Bay areas. Reduce your speeds and drive with care. The N3 northbound has a tanker crash reported at Moirafir. All lanes are open. On the N2, road surface damage reported just west of Isolgowini, so delays and diversions are possible. The N3 is queuing on the link to the N2 north at Spaghetti Junction, and the R102 is slow moving near Mount Moriah Drive. In the Eastern Cape, widespread flooding reported across the Kroberge area, so proceed with extreme care. In Cape Town, Bakenkrag Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Helen Suzman Boulevard inbound queuing towards Bakenkrag Street, and Lower Church Street northbound is closed over the N1 highway bridge due to bridge damage. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, to me, let's talk sport, but you want to get something off your chest.
I do. Earlier on, I heard a voice note from one of our listeners saying, listen, we can't celebrate someone if they haven't finished off as winners. However, I feel like then there's double standards because, and I'm not even comparing, I'm just saying that if we are going to say that we're only celebrating a national team and go and support them when they come back at the airport after winning a tournament, why were there so many fans at the airport when Bafana finished third at the Africa Cup of Nations? I'm just saying. Well, we look at football.
We touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
You want to say again, why do you think there was more then than now?
Yeah, because I think that's, for me, it's double standards. Because if we are going to say we're supporting a national team only when they win a tournament and we will make sure that the airport is packed, surely we shouldn't have filled the airport when Bafana came back from the Africa Cup of Nations.
I think we got a full day off when the Springboks won the World Cup.
Yeah.
We should at least get a half a day off.
All I'm saying is that can we just treat all our national teams the same, regardless of if it's a men's side or a women's side? If anything, I think the Proteas women did well by finishing at runners-up.
Well, they did very well in successive World Cups.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously being finalists both times around. But I also hear to the defense of the caller what he's saying, that ultimately, I mean, there is a gap. There's a big gulf between winning first and winning second. If there wasn't, you wouldn't have to play in a final. I mean, think about it. There is a gulf. And the reality, as it should be, all the plaudits ultimately will go to the eventual winners. That's why teams cry when they lose a final. As I saw the Springbok, I saw the Proteas women's team totally dejected.
They were destroyed.
As they should be, because It's such a big deal in your life, and you don't know. This is the point I was making earlier. You don't know if you're going to get the opportunity again, ever.
And I'm not saying let us lower our expectations or wanting to win a tournament. I'm just saying if one national team wins and we're all going to go to the airport and the next doesn't win, we all shouldn't go to the airport.
Well, I agree. But then I'll repeat the point I made earlier. Somebody has to orchestrate and organize that. And
absolutely.
Whoever is in charge, well, I'll leave it to them to have done just that. Okay, move on.
Righty. Banyana are currently playing Namibia in the COSAFA Women's Championship. They're getting their campaign underway. It's at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. The last time I checked, it was still goalless, and South Africa are looking to do better than they did last year, where they failed to advance past their group stages. Then there's some football action to look forward to today in terms of the Betway Premiership. The season resumes tonight with a blockbuster clash between Orlando Pirates and SuperSport United at Orlando Stadium. The Buccaneers likely to welcome back Makhetlene Makaula and Miguel Tim from injury, while SuperSport will be without Jape Morale, who's out on suspension. There's also some Champions League action tonight. Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta has called on his side to use the pain of their first defeat in 6 months in the league against Bournemouth as motivation for the Champions League clash against Shakhtar Donetsk. Meanwhile, Aston Villa defender Matty Cash says that he's hoping his dream will come true against Bologna in terms of beating them in the Champions League. Villa take on the Serie A side in their third game of the season's top European Cup competition. And in the pick of the night, it is Borussia Dortmund who play host to Real Madrid, and kick-off is at 9 p.m. Then moving on to cricket, day 2 of the first test between Proteas men and Bangladesh. Bangladesh reached 101 for 3 in the second innings, trailing South Africa by 101 runs at stumps. Earlier, Calverin notched up his second test ton as the Proteas were dismissed for 308 in their first innings. Then in Rugby World Cup winning lock Arius Snyman has been named in the Springbok squad for 3 tests next month. Snyman missed the Rugby Championship with a foot injury. The 29-year-old is joined in the setup by utility back Damian Willemse, centre Andre Esterhuizen, and fellow second row Franco Mostert, who also sidelined for the mid-year campaign. Fly half Sasha Feinberg, Mungama Zulu, and lock Salman Murat and Luet de Jager, as well as prop Steven Kitchoff are missing, however, with fitness issues. Then in tennis, Poland's Iga Swiatek will play in the Billie Jean King finals in Malaga in November, where they face host Spain in the opening match. Swiatek has not played since her US Open quarterfinal defeat by Jessica Peguela in September, and after deciding to miss the WTA's Tour's Asian swing due to fatigue, the 23-year-old lost her number 1 position to Belarusian's Arina Sabalenka. Now, Swiatek, who parted ways with her coach Thomas earlier this month and has since added Wim Fissett to her team, will also take part in November's WTA finals in Riyadh, giving her a chance to reclaim top spot in the world rankings. Meanwhile, world number 6 Taylor Fritz says that the International Tennis Federation's decision to allow off-court coaching from 2025 is basically going to ruin the 1-versus-1 strategic and mental elements of the game. Now, the ITF announced yesterday that off-court coaching will be allowed from the 1st of January following a decision made by the governing body's annual general meeting this month. It said that the change would make tennis fairer and potentially more entertaining, which I actually think is going to make the aspect of tennis very interesting, because if you didn't know, the moment the players stepped on the court, coaches are not allowed to coach their players. So with this new rule, it means that coaches can now advise their players either verbally or via hand signals. And also, I do understand that players can access approved player analysis technology also during their time. And with them having not been allowed before, the coaches had to say everything they wanted to say before the match and hope that their players would implement it. But with now the coaches being allowed allowed to talk to the players, an interesting aspect to the game.
So who proposed this idea that they must bring the coaches in now?
It's International Tennis Federation.
Like, I wonder who the person
Not
is.
proposes. It's done.
No, but I wonder who proposed it in the first place, because I'll give that person an award. It's the most logical thing in any sport in the world. The dynamic between player and coach is so critical.
Yeah.
Right. And that is why we don't know the coaches. You'll see suddenly now in tennis, the coaches will come to the fore.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm hoping, besides modern technology, I'd hope when they have those timeouts, in the change of balls, they'd allow the coach to, put his hand around, his arm around the player and have that chat. That's what you want to see. I mean, Jose Mourinho is a football coach. Can you just imagine that type of person, or an Ili Nastasi now being a coach? But by the way, one other thing that's interesting about, because I like it, I think it's a great thing. But one other thing about this is, up to now, the person who's in charge, or rather the captain of Davis Cup teams, are always non-players, which is another interesting anomaly.
And now they'll be allowed to coach if they want to give coaching advice. It'll be interesting to see.
But the point is they call them captains,
yeah,
even when they don't play. So strange. Well, it's called tennis. Yeah.
Well, with that said, Kenatumen Khapele Mudimugyo.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Susampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Health experts say that taking care of your baby starts the day you learn you have conceived. Changes should start immediately, from what you eat to how you take care of yourself. After you've delivered your baby, does the worry stop? No, it doesn't. From there, it's clinic visits, breastfeeding, introducing solids, and the list goes on. If you're a mom, father, or caregiver and are curious on how to support your kids' development to reach their full potential, or even concerned about the nutrition that strengthens their bodies, then our new SABC Education feature, Side by Side, is for you. Get all the advice you need from the Department of Health by tuning in every Wednesday and Thursday at 2:30 p.m. on The Full Circle on SAFM, starting in October. Tune in to the feature and you could win 1,000 Rand with our monthly competition. Side by Side, brought to you by SABC Education on SAFM, leading the conversation.
Right, so Eskom, well, there's a problem around recoding your meters. So Eskom has made it easy for you, right? And that's for customers recoding their prepaid meters. The deadline, 24th of November. We spoke about it yesterday. So all Eskom customers are now reminded to recode their prepaid meters before that 24th of November deadline. If your meter is not recoded, it will not accept legally bought prepaid electricity tokens. So basically, you'll have no lights, right? Eskom has made this process easy for you. We have now pre-coded all meters, and they are ready for you to recode your meters yourself. So it's pretty easy. Now, to do this, go to any Eskom-approved electricity outlet and buy an electricity credit token. And the Eskom teams will be on standby to help you.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy Moyaha is always in the hot seat ahead of the SAFM market update. Jimmy, let's start with what's moving markets today.
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to the listeners. Today we're going to be taking a look at all things SARS. The receiver of revenue has been quite busy. They gave us a bit of an update around their collections up to this point in terms of revenue collections. But more importantly, we're going to be speaking to them about the diesel raids that they've conducted. They raided 2 depots that are suspected for black market diesel manufacturing, and that includes the suspicion that they've been diluting some of that diesel with paraffin and other chemicals. So we're going to speak to SARS around that and around those revenues and try and understand what they've been up to. They certainly have been quite busy. Then we've got a conversation with the team at Treasury One around understanding this new rate. So there is a new benchmark that's been put in place after about 6 or so years that aims to reimagine how banks lend money to each other. There's something called an interbank rate, and we'll do that in one of our masterclasses, and that interbank rate is being looked at differently from a banking perspective, from the Reserve Bank's perspective, and we've got a new rate or a new measurement style that's going to come in that's supposed to make us more transparent. Never a bad thing, right? We always like to see transparency come to the fold. Then we've got a conversation around annuities with momentum. We're going to take a look at understanding when the right time is to buy those sorts of products. And then because today is our Tuesday Agri feature, we either do Agri Tuesdays or we do Property Tuesdays, and we're doing Agri Tuesdays this week. We're going to be taking a look at a concept called urban farming. There's a unique urban farming project currently taking place in Southgate Mall in Johannesburg, and we're going to be looking at how urban farming could potentially be beneficial towards ecosystems and towards environments. If you remember last week, I had a conversation around food insecurity, and we were looking at a food insecurity index that was put together by ShopRite. We're going to be taking a look at whether or not things like urban farming can improve those kinds of situations. But before we get to that, we've had a rather interesting day on the markets front. Markets have been moving very similar to how they were moving yesterday, not very positive. If we look at some Asian movements, or Asian markets rather, the Shanghai markets, the only markets in the green, about 0.5% in the green. The Nikkei in Tokyo down 0.8%, the ASX in Sydney down 1.6%, and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong finishing basically flat. The DAX in Germany 0.04% in the red. The DAX in Germany, the DAX in Germany was 0.04%, the CAC in France was up 0.1%, and the FTSE in London was down 0.14%. US markets are in the red at the moment, but they, of course, are going to be trading into the evening. They're marginally in the red, with the Nasdaq down about 0.1% and the S&P down 0.25% or so. Our own markets didn't fare much better from international markets. The resources sector, the only sector in the green, 0.25% in the green. Industrials down 1/3, and financials down almost a full percent. As a result, the all share was down a little over 0.33%, with the top 40 down the exact same margin, 0.37% there. Commodities still holding firm, still holding strong, and that's probably what's driving the resources market still on the second day of this week. Platinum pricing above $1,000, $1,036. Palladium $1,079. Brent crude back above $75. We don't like to see that. We were at $73 at some point yesterday. The gold price $2,739 an ounce, up about 0.6% at this stage. If we look at some currency movements, the rand kind of holding its ground against all of the majors and clawing back a little bit against the US dollar. One US dollar will cost you 17 Rand 54 at the moment. One British pound, 22 Rand 76. And 1 euro is less than 19 Rand for the first time in a very long time. 18 Rand and 96 cents there. One Australian dollar is 11 Rand and 71 cents. Those that are keeping an eye on crypto, the Bitcoin price is just north of $67,000, $67,330 odd dollars there. That's about 1.18 million rand, obviously with the exchange rate fluctuation there coming into effect. So markets looking kind of okay at this stage. I think if we have to look at the euro, well, the price of the euro, I want to see the last time we were below 19 Rand. I don't think we've been below that level this year. I'm just pulling up a euro chart, and I'll give you the exact time when we were last at this price level. But certainly good movements from the Rand side, especially with all of the uncertainty that exists in the global space. And having a look at the markets, we haven't been at this price level since... 2000 and...
No?
February of last year.
Okay, well, there you are. All right, and just maybe, unless there's more to say, just a quick soundbite on your masterclass, fiscal policy instruments, that is what?
So, fiscal policy in itself is the policy that the government puts in place to grow the economy, to manage things like how they spend the money, how they distribute the earnings that they collect or the revenues that they collect. The instruments that they use vary. So taxes are one such instrument, government expenditure is one such instrument, public borrowing is another instrument. So you've got different tools within the fiscal policy that are supposedly supposed to all come together and make things better or improve the economic state from a government perspective. We'll hear more about this obviously next week when we do have that midterm budget policy statement, and I will see if I can come have some time with you in studio for that, because I think that's going to be a very important conversation as well.
Okay, an appointment set. Thanks for that, Jimmy. But your first appointment comes up 6 to 7. Looking forward to that.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's get to our feature we call Winning for People and Organizations and Institutes that are winning at what they do. Now, I've probably done this so often with Pepe Marais, Joe Public, but we'll do it once again. Joe Public, winners of the Agency of the Year at the Lourdes Awards 2024. You know, the Lourdes Awards are the definitive advertising or marketing agency awards that happens every year. And, of course, it happened a few days ago. So let's chat then to Pepe Marais, or Dr. Pepe Marais now, the co-founder and Integrated Group Chief Creative Officer at Joe Public. Pepe, good chatting to you. Hi.
It's been a while, Ashraf. Lovely to hear your voice.
Thank you. It's the first time I'm chatting to you since you got the title Doctor next to your name. And perhaps, and since we're talking about a feature called Winning, it's about winning attitudes as well. There's a story behind why you are called Doctor. Maybe you can just tell us about that, because it's very much linked to your purpose. I know that. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Ashraf, so I'm very passionate about organizational purpose, and introduced purpose for our organization, which came out of bankruptcy. You know, always need a breakdown to have a breakthrough spiritually. So purpose-driven ad agency, saw huge results in our growth based on purpose. And then I wanted to put data behind it and really interrogate the subject. So I didn't know it's going to take me 6 years of my life, but I did it and it's done. And yeah, I'm actually currently in London. Met with some clients today, presenting I presented a thought leadership on this idea of organizational purpose. Yeah, so very exciting.
Well, fabulous. But let's then talk about your organization, Joe Public, or the Joe Public Agency, winning big Agency of the Year. I mean, clearly that's the biggest one that you want to win in this country, isn't it?
Yeah, the overall agency, it was amazing. This year, it's an African and Middle Eastern show now for quite a long time, for quite a few years, I think for over a decade already. And to see, you know, the Middle East as a what would I call it? It's like as a geographical area, competes at a high level. So I think globally they ranked number 10 or 11 at Cannes. No, number 8 in fact this year. Mm-hmm. They ranked number 8 globally as a creative industry, as an advertising industry. South Africa has dropped down to 26.
Wow!
So you can already see that gap. And we used to be close to the top 10, and at times I think our best performance was top 4 in the world. So they came into this competition, which is a creative competition that looks at creativity, but also looks at the effectivity of our work for our brands that we serve. And they came in with all guns blazing. So it was amazing to see some of our other really great agencies of South Africa, the Ogilvy's, the TBWA's, the other really solid, really great, young, not even young, they're 10 years old, the Odd Number, Halo, a new agency, made some inroads, some small, but it was amazing to see the agencies coming out of the blocks. And in the end, yeah, we were awarded overall agency based on our performance across 5 of our key clients, which was, it was phenomenal, you know, against that tough competition, and also the big guns like the Ogilvy's. That was really amazing for us.
All right, so when you say based on your performance, so that would be what? Creative performance in terms of the type of adverts that you make and the impact that those ads have? Is that correct?
So the Lourdes would look mainly at creativity. The Effies looks more at effectivity, although the Lourdes has got an effective category where they take previous year's winners and then based on results also award. So we won top prize in that category as well. So we won for effectivity. And there's 13 different categories, and we won across 10 of those categories, multiple awards across, and really amazing. One of our new clients, a new win for us early on this year was Santam. So to actually win in the radio category for a piece of work for them was amazing. So yeah, Nedbank, Chicken Licken, SA Breweries, and then obviously Santam, and then also Amnesty International, which is one of our non-profits, together with One School at a Time that we have within our stable.
Okay, that's fabulous. What did the judges say, about your work, about your agency's work? Did they tell you anything? Is there a citation that you can share?
I think the only citation I can share was on a piece of work we did for Nedbank. I didn't even mention Hansa. That was also quite amazing. I have to mention this. A little shout out for our Baby Joe, our young agency in Cape Town, did phenomenally well for a third year in a row for Hansa, which is also within the AB InBev stable. But the only, I judge one of the categories, so not real feedback there. But on the night, one of our film pieces for Nedbank really, really did well. And the international judge spoke just to the caliber of the work. Film for us is something we pride ourselves on. I think there's still a road to walk towards getting to global standards. There's a bit of a gap, and there's multiple reasons for that. But really spoke well to a caliber of our thinking and especially the craft. And for that, I have to also mention we work with suppliers, and in this instance, it was the Darling, which is a production house, and director Z, who did a phenomenal piece of work for us. And then always, we can't do this work without caliber clients. And Nedbank's one of the top marketers and marketing teams in the country, for sure. And that's not a biased view. That's a fact.
And let me ask you this silly question. From a brand point of view, and you're not the brand. I'm looking at the Nedbanks of the world and everybody else that you mentioned, the Chicken Lickers. In terms of the need for them to advertise, number one, right? Does advertising matter? And then, one may say, well, if it's advertising, just put out any advert anyway. Why the need to A, advertise, and B, the need to be absolutely creative about that?
So firstly, obviously advertising really kicks in when there's a certain scale to it. We've got the social spaces. We can advertise in those spaces. Small brands can advertise at a lower cost. But if you're really talking about building and growing brands, you need big spend. But that big spend translates to sales, otherwise we wouldn't be in business. So when we work on retail brands, Nedbank's got a retail component, but Chicken Licken as an example, the day that we push play on a piece of film into, let's say, the more traditional spaces like radio or television, we get sales immediately. So advertising does correlate to sales. But then the big thing for us as advertisers, serving our marketers and our brands, is to create differentiation, because you've got a choice. You've got this chicken brand over that one, over that one. The consumer's got 3, 4, 5 different choices. So who are they going to choose? So any brand has got their competitors. If we work on a flying fish or on a brutal fruit, there are competitors in the market, and our jobs are to create emotional connection between the consumer and that brand, so that that consumer chooses that brand for whatever reason resonates with them. So there's a science behind all of this, but then for sure, the more creative, people buy what you believe in and not just what you're selling. So the more creative, the more there's belief baked into your communication, the more there's humor, the more there's connectivity, the better, people love your brand, they're gonna buy.
Absolutely. Now, there's no question that, and of course, for those that don't know, it's pretty obvious that I know you. We know each other pretty well over many, many years. Know you, and I certainly know your agency, right? And key for that, in terms of we talking in this space called winning, is we certainly want to celebrate champions, and there's no question that you and the agency are best in class in what you do, right? But perhaps here's the thought for us and the audience, right? What makes you and your agency so good at what you do?
So again, I'm very conscious not to just call us out. There are a handful. There's not enough good players, and I think the more there are more good players, that's why I called out a few at the beginning of the interview. It's not just us. There's quite a few players in our market, and we all respect each other. But if I have to speak to why we're so consistent in our ranking in the industry, I would say the first thing is we do have an organizational purpose. And we deliver on that purpose through measurement. So we are very, very good at our planning. We've got systems in place. We create growth tracks with our clients. We have joint KPIs of what we want to achieve. We measure our creativity, and we try and improve on our creativity. I always find it interesting, mostly in business, we only measure our finances, which is bizarre, because finances responds to your product and your service. And if you measure your product and your service and you ensure that you improve on that, that's great for a relationship, and it's great for for your client's growth, and it's great for your growth as a business. So we're very, very systemized on our approach, very systematic. It's not just by chance, 7 years, 5 of the 7 years number 1, and 2 of the 7 years number 2.
Absolutely.
It's not often done. So I think that's one thing that does differentiate us. We're intentional. And we love what we do, and there's a purpose at the heart of what we do.
Well,
and as always, clients,
Absolutely. Here's the last thing as we wrap up and get to news now. When we talk about purpose, you feel strongly about it. I'll just give you. I know the answer because I know that, but you tell me, what is your purpose, Pepe Murray?
So we exist to serve, and it's always service statements. We serve the growth of our people firstly, secondly our clients, and thirdly our country. And we do it through the greatness of our creativity. It's as simple as that. So the greater our creativity, the more we serve the growth of our people, our clients, and our country. And that's the approach.
And that's the type of champions I like to talk about. So good chatting to you on this feature we called Winning. Pepe Murray, Joe Public Agency, once again, great to talk to you. And may you inspire others to be as good, if not better, than what you do right now. Thanks for your time. Much appreciated. And we'll connect soon. There you are. That's the show. It's called The National Pulse. Come on. It must get your pulses racing. All the things we've done today. You let me know. Give me some feedback. You can just post some comments on our social media pages. I will certainly connect. Let's get the news now. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg Host.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, former Joburg Mayor placed on special leave and SAFTU rejects labour law amendments. Good evening. The former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda has been placed on special leave, effective immediately following his arrest last week Friday. According to the NPA, he appeared in court on the same day together with his co-accused. They're charged with fraud amounting to 12,000 rand. They were both released on bail and the case has been postponed to December. City of Joburg spokesperson Intatisi Modengwane.
The severity of these allegations